Thank you for bearing with us through our technical difficulties. The time is 7:17 p.m. I'd like to call to order this mayor and town council regular meeting for Tuesday, July 9th. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States indivisible, with liberty and justice. Can we please have a roll call, Susan?
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Diablos.
Here. All right, we will move on to item 3, approval of the agenda. Only change is on our agenda, we have listed National Recreation and Parks Month for a proclamation. We actually did that proclamation on our May 28th meeting, so we don't need to do it a second time. So I'd entertain a motion to remove that from the agenda.
Second.
All right, motion by Deputy Mayor Rada, second by Councilor Mankey. Any discussion on the change the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any other changes to the agenda that anyone needs to make? All right, seeing none, we will move on to presentations. We've been doing once a month, we've been having a presentation from a different town department, and this week and this month we get to hear from our fire marshal's office, and we are joined today by DJ Zordan, our fire marshal, and come on up, DJ. Thank you.
We good? All right, good evening. So for those that don't know me, DJ Zordan. I'm the fire marshal for the town of Newington. And as requested, I'm going to give kind of a brief overview of the office and how we operate. So one of the things we've developed is a mission statement. Really, the most important thing, we are trying to be customer service oriented and get away from the days where the fire marshal's office comes in and we're going to cost money. We're going to cost businesses money. That's a known fact. There's nothing going to change that fact. But what we're trying to do is say we are empathetic to the needs of the businesses, and we will work with you to put plans together and make sure buildings meet compliance. People are safe. However, financially, it doesn't negatively impact any sort of business operation. We have a policy that all of our staff members follow. And to sum it up, every interaction with our customers is an opportunity to ensure a safe community, solve a problem, and leave a positive, lasting impression. We want to be a community partner. We would much rather have people come to us and say, can I do this? How do I do this? What's the best way to do this? Instead of us walking in and saying, hey, you did this, but it's all wrong, so now you have to fix it. So there are quite a few things that we are responsible for. They are in statute. The two most important are what we would consider code enforcement. So that's the enforcement of the fire safety code and fire prevention code. We also are responsible for regulations of explosives and fireworks. And then we have to do fire investigations. There are a lot of other things that we do in the office, and I'll touch on those in a few minutes, but this is the core of why we're here. So I can give you some stats, but ultimately our job is to get into public buildings. For us, the code defines public building as anything commercial and residential occupancies that are 3-family or more. So we don't go into 1 and 2 family houses. Fire investigations, we do investigations on all fires, but we do kind of give some latitude. If there's a fire on a telephone pole, we're obviously not going to investigate it unless there's some sort of issue that says this doesn't look right. Same thing with like mulch fires, things like that. But anywhere where there's damage to a building, any sort of injury, we go out and we do an investigation for every fire. So again, I hope you guys can see on your screens. We get a variety of sizes and severity. So the tough part is what may look like a small fire. We have to do the same thing every time. So our investigations, typically take anywhere from 3 to 4 hours, and then bigger fires where there's more damage. We could be out there for 6, 7, 8 hours digging through, trying to how I would describe it is put the puzzle back together. So fires, again, we don't do anything criminally. Our job is to identify origin and cause. So where the fire started, how the fire started, and more specifically in that, how is what was the first fuel ignited? It's what we call our fuel package. What's the heat source? And then how did those two come together? If we determine that there's some sort of criminal act, we would engage the police department, and they do the law enforcement side of this investigation. We would collaborate from there. The big part of what we do is code enforcement. And I'll talk about all these pictures kind of briefly. But as we do enforcement, there's several different ways that we basically find these violations, as we would call them. But I'll go one by one. There's a community-based. So this is actually from Project Graduation this past year. So this is the main hallway, if everybody's familiar with the main hallway of Newington High School. To the left is the gym entrance. To the right is the cafeteria. They going to have some egress issues. We know you're going to have some what we would call interior finish. We know you're going to hang stuff on the walls that you're not supposed to do. So let's find the safest way to do that and prevent anything from happening. We have complaint-based inspections. So we get notified in various ways. Most commonly it's email, but we do get US mail. We do get telephone calls that say, something doesn't look right. Can you go check it out? And again, this just happened to be one patio heater inside of a restaurant, which is obviously not allowed. So those are, again, that's a high priority. If somebody's going to complain, or actually take time out to say, this really doesn't look safe, we jump on those. And then we have routine inspections. So based on the type of occupancy, and I'll give you a quick overview. For us, a business occupancy is defined as where business is conducted. So think of like a bank, an accountant's office, things like that. A lot of times people will drive up and down the turnpike and say, oh, look at all these businesses. Yes, they are businesses, but grocery stores are what we would consider mercantile. Restaurants are what we would consider assemblies. So based on how the building is being used, it dictates how often we need to do inspections. So we've actually limited it. We do annual inspections. We do 2-year inspections in 3 years. That's dictated by the state fire marshal's office. So, but again, on those routine inspections, we're looking at how is the building being used? So for example, in this picture, this is an assembly occupancy, but they've created a sleeping area, so that changes things. It increases the hazard in the building. So now we need to make sure that, hey, if there's people sleeping in there, we want to make sure they're protected. Same concept, we look at the different components. Most importantly to us is means of egress. So at any point, if there's an emergency, not just fire emergency, it could be, severe weather, it could be whatever. We have to evacuate a building. Can we get everybody out? And just an example here, I can say this, this is Indian Hill. This is the back stairway, and it leads to nowhere. It was a pretty steep grade. So as we walk through, we're looking at where does this stuff go? Can people get to, a public way is what we would say. So in this case, the parking lot. So our facilities team came in and worked out a way to put in an actual asphalt path. So now anybody using this egress stair can actually get to a parking lot, especially in like the winter time where there may be snow or ice or anything like that. So again, these are the most common, what we would call regular inspections. Then we have fireworks. We typically only have them once a year with the extravaganza, but it's an interesting day always. So we do the permitting. There are several regulations with fireworks. As far as distances to keep people away, as far as how these racks are set up, how big of a shell they can fire. So it's actually very involved. So we work with the shooters, and it's just about that time again. So we're getting ready for that. And then we do blasting. So we have obviously the quarry in town. It's a hot issue with some people, but we do monitor the quarry. There are also some smaller developments that are required to blast for foundations. So all of that is permitted through our office, and we're making sure that they're doing it in accordance with the regulations, and we're actually requiring them to send the seismograph readings that they take, so we have a record of what the actual, vibration levels are, and have a backup to make sure that we're not cracking any foundations or things like that. We are part of the Safe Homes Task Force. The Safe Homes Task Force is, it's actually Newington is a model community. It is to make sure that people have a safe place to live. Generally, it's referred to as hoarding, but this is, just to keep it at a summary level. This is a mental disorder. People collect things, and the things that they collect are very important to them, but it oftentimes creates issues where they can't safely egress in an emergency, or a lot of times it's what we would call excessively combustible. It could be paper bags. It could be, you never know what you're going to get or what you're going to see. So while we do take the administrative lead, we track it. We're usually the first phone call to say, we have this issue. We collaborate with several other departments, the police department. Human Services takes on a huge role with this in the remediation. We work with the ACO, the health department, the town manager's office, the zoning officer, to try to, I'll say attack this at all angles, but, get residents back to a safe environment where there is safe egress. And that's pretty much what we're looking for. And then the last big thing that we do is plan reviews. So this is like a paper inspection, I call it. We're looking to make sure before you build, are you going to build it correctly? Is the egress there? Let's try to basically identify any issues you may have so they can be corrected simply by erasing a line versus, demolishing a part of a building. So we're involved with any renovation or construction that falls under our code. So again, we're not residential, 1 or 2 family houses, apartments, and then anything commercial. So just a quick breakdown of the inspections, and this is by occupancy. So you can see the business occupancy is about half of the inspections we do. We have 1,235 occupancies. Those are properties. And I'll get into that number a little bit more. But you know, educational, we have 13 or 14. You know, it's the schools, and plus we have the private school academy. And again, these all have a frequency for inspection. Educational is going to be an annual inspection. Some of what they would consider lower hazard, the storage, maybe mercantile, would go to the 2 or 3 years. So just to give you some comparison, I did find data from 2020. This was before I started here. But based on the type of the building that the staff was inspecting, it kind of shows that they were at about 54% compliant. Same thing in 2024. This is current as of Friday, basically. These are the numbers of buildings that we have inspected. So the orange, we've certainly increased getting into the buildings and making sure we're getting the inspections done. So again, percentages, we are currently at right around 80%, which is a stat that I would put against almost any fire marshal's office in the state to say that's a great number. We will never be 100% just based on the way the calendar works. And one day we would be compliant, and the next is you've been a year, so now you're due. But our goal is to be up right around 90%. And that last 10% is going to be the flex of we still have to get in there and get an inspection done. Our highest priority is residential by far. So we have quite a variety of residential. These are the hotels and motels we have in town. Most are located on the Berlin Turnpike. They provide some challenges for us. But you can see some are bigger than others. So the number of units is actually the number of rooms that they have. So when it comes to residential, not only are we responsible for inspecting the building, we're supposed to be going into every dwelling unit and making sure that they are compliant. How we do that is we look and make sure, do they have safe egress? Do they have smoke detectors? We try not to invade personal space too much, but those are the 2 big things that we want to make sure are working. So we do that with the hotels. We also do that with apartment buildings. So we have 59 properties in town that are considered apartments. Sometimes people will say, I live in a condo. For us, a condo is a term of ownership. They're apartments. So currently we have 17, just about 1,800 dwelling units in apartments that we try to get into. This is a logistical nightmare. John Hoffman is the assistant fire marshal in our office. His job is residential. That's his primary function. And it's scheduling things and trying to get into people's homes is tough. So, but we can say that we've gotten into 100% of the buildings. And generally we're right around 50% of dwelling units. Again, compared to marshal's offices across the state, that's leaps and bounds above some of the offices that have thousands of these what we call triple deckers or 3-family apartments where they can't even get into them all. And again, just to give an idea, these houses I picked just because it's funny, they're right across the street from each other. Each property requires a different level of engagement. So, these are both what we would consider apartments. They're both similar, 5 dwelling units, 4 dwelling units. But some take a little bit more time and effort to get compliance than others based on responsiveness of whether it be a landlord, a property owner, a tenant. So this is a very hard occupancy category to get into and maintain. But I think collectively we're doing a great job at it here. And thankfully we don't have too many. We're not a New Britain, we're not a Waterbury or Hartford where it's just overwhelming. Just to give you guys an idea of, again, apartment buildings, we classify this as one property, but if you're familiar with Fenwood, that's King Arthur's Way, or you're familiar with Griswold Hills, those are 11 buildings. It's 133 dwelling units or 128 dwelling units. So that's a big challenge to get into all of those. So when we say, hey, we're compliant, it's not just, hey, we went to one building. We got into 11 buildings. We got into hopefully a majority of the actual dwelling units to ensure that they have working smoke detectors and, clear paths of egress. Just a quick overview of our staff. So we have 3 full-time employees, myself, the Assistant Fire Marshal, John Hoffman. Karen Galicio is new. She just transferred into our office. As I call her, our operations coordinator, because I'm giving her a little bit of everything. But, so we're the 3 full-time employees. We do have 2 20-hour positions. Those are the deputy fire marshals. One is currently vacant. And then what we do is the hours that we have that are not used by the deputy fire marshals, we do have per diem staff. So currently we have 2. One is on kind of an extended leave of absence and one is vacant, which we've posted and we're hopefully going to fill by the end of the month. But this is working. We're making it work. But you'll see from the next couple of slides, we have some challenges that are upcoming. Here's just a quick snapshot of our budget for the last 4 or 5 years. We're right in, 220 to 300,000 per year. Several, accounts, if you will. But this is kind of a breakdown. 93% of our budget is salary. 7% is operations. So we have pretty much the equipment that we need. The town and the fire commission have been very supportive to my office. So we have what we need to do the job, and now we're getting out to get them done. So in the future, there's some projects coming up that I know everybody is aware of, but we have Cedar Point. That's an additional 108 units that's adding to our inspection. So, and again, a lot of times people will compare us to the building department, and while they are certainly busy as well, once they CO a building, which is it's allowed to open, they're pretty much done with it unless there's a complaint. When we CO a building, now we have to go back and return and do inspections. So some of this new development, while great for the town, does put a burden on us. So an additional 108 units. A lot of these, and I'll just give a quick update, are being stalled by electrical. There is an electrical issue with actual equipment and getting it. So I did put kind of a projection together. The new hotel at 712 Cedar Street, it's Wood Spring Suites. Again, we're adding 122 units for inspection. The Pike Apartments, this is at the corner of Payne Road and Maselli Road, 2 buildings, 152 additional housing units. Meadow Commons is 5 commercial buildings. Several are open now. There's 2 that are open. There's a couple more that are working on fit outs. In the back, it's actually not called Meadow Commons anymore. It's called Milliard Apartments. They have 3 apartment buildings. That's 269 additional dwelling units. One is open, one is near completion, and then the third will be definitely, well, probably by the end of the year. The Spark is officially on Myra Cohen Way. That is the old National Welding site. They're working to move their project along, but once that gets underway, that's another 230 dwelling units. And then we have Culver Street. So we're adding 225 dwelling units there. So for us, that's what we're looking at and trying to figure out how these are all annual inspections because they're residential. So scheduling and logistics will be certainly something we have to look at going forward. So again, just to give a quick overview of all these new big projects, as I would call them. It looks like, the fourth quarter of 24, you'll see, Cedar Point, Wood Spring Suites, and the Pike open, Mill Yard Apartments as well. The Spark and Culver are probably 2 to 3 years out. But we're adding, as you can see, 1,100 units to town that need to be inspected. So we'll be working on that. With that, any questions?
Counselor Page.
Thanks, DJ, very much for the presentation. Question, maybe 2. One is, you said the fire marshal's position, deputy fire marshal, is a 20-hour position, and that's vacant. Did you say also the vacant fire inspector is 20 hours?
That's per diem. So they're actually not allotted hours.
Okay.
The per diem staff use basically what's left over that the deputies don't use. And we basically split it up on we have guys that'll come in once a week. And as hours are available, we'll give them days to work.
And then the second question, when you're done, it may be obvious to many of us, but if you could, a quick PSA, say the top 3 to 4 or 5 things that you see that we all are guilty of that contribute to unfortunate fires. What should we be thinking of as we live our daily life to be safer in homes? Thanks.
So cooking is always a big one. Making sure, I'll say, equipment is clear is probably the second one. To say 5, it would be tough, but those are the 2 biggest. So what we would say is, anything that produces heat, you want to give enough space to, let that heat dissipate. And then the third, which we do see often, would be smoking, or improper disposal of smoking materials.
Thank you.
With the addition of all the 1,100 units that we're anticipating, what has your department done to get ready for that?
To be honest, we're still trying to catch up. So once we get on we have a schedule now. So we know that in January, these apartments, these whatever specific apartments are going to be due. So implementing that schedule makes it easier to manage, and we're not overloading people. But right now we're still kind of playing that catch-up game. When I was hired, I said 3 years. We'll be caught up, and that's exactly where we are right now. So now is kind of the time that we're going to start looking forward and saying, this is what we need. This is what we can do. If there's any sort of collaboration that we can do. But it's really going to be a manpower issue to say we need to manage our per diem staff to make sure we're getting into all those apartments.
Do you think you have enough staffing as it is now, or I'm sure you could always take more people, but
yeah, we'll always take more people, but it will be tough. It'll be tough.
Thank you.
First of all, thanks for coming. Appreciate your presentation. I think fire marshal is one of the ones that kind of gets misplaced. If you're not there to do an inspection, nobody likes to have inspection.
Right.
Sure, you're not well. majority of the business you look at. Just can you speak a minute about how do you get to be a fire marshal? What kind of a training do you have? What kind of how do you get this to do this?
So we do have, there is statutory requirements. So generally the staff comes from the fire service. And that's one of the requirements is that you have to have basically years of experience to either take the class or challenge the test. But everybody has to take a state test. It encompasses the 3 different fire codes along with several reference standards. So the books we're responsible for testing purposes about 8 different books. So generally what happens is somebody would go to class. The class is offered by the state. It's generally 3 to 4 months long. Unfortunately, they only offer it during the day, but they go to class, they learn the code, and it's interesting. I actually came from the state. I taught it for 5 years. We basically teach people to read. That's, the answers are in front of you. You just have to find it. But there's so much information and there's so much intricacy to say, if you read a word wrong, you misapply the code. So it can be challenging at times, but once you complete the class, you take the test. Once you pass the test, you are considered certified in the state of Connecticut. And then from there, you're responsible for, depending on certifications, continuing education requirements. So for all of us in the office, we are what we would consider full cert. We are both fire investigators and code enforcement. So we're responsible for 90 hours of a continuing education every 3 years. And that's just to, again, to ensure that we remain current. The code changes every 3 years. So we're trying to always keep up with basically the new requirements.
Thank you.
Well, Council Floyd. Yeah, I just want to be mine. That's just unmute yourself.
Thank you. And thank you for this presentation. Am I unmuted? I'm good. Yeah, okay. Thank you for coming before us. Like most of our departments, you make miracles happen with what you've got. So thank you for all that you do. Just a couple questions for you. So you referenced a few times the challenge that can sometimes come with inspecting every single last dwelling unit when we are a town that has so many and has so many more on the horizon. You mentioned that right now you can say with confidence you inspect 100% of buildings, around 50% or so of those units. Is there a number set by state statute or a goal? I know, of course, I'm sure your department has a goal of 100% or, around there certainly, but is there a number that you are required to meet by statute or by code that, yes, once I inspect 65% of the units and they are in compliance, I can say that this complex property is in compliance generally?
There's not a specific number. The
Okay.
number is 100%.
Sure.
So if somebody was going to take us to court and say, you didn't inspect this unit, you're right, we didn't.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, so no, it's if I'll put my opinion out there it's an old statute. It's unreasonable to be able to get into every dwelling unit. But one of the things that we are trying to do is work with our state's attorney and the state fire marshal's office to develop basically a letter that says we want to make sure that you have working smoke detectors and clear paths of egress. In an emergency, you can get out. And we essentially want to put it on each tenant to say, if you're verifying you have that, then we're okay with that. We will absolutely 100% come in and say, we'll look at your apartment, we'll look at whatever, we'll answer your questions. But if you don't want us to, or for scheduling purposes, you can't, as long as you're verifying that, hey, I have a safe apartment. So we're hoping to get that pushed through, if you will, to say we'll certainly have at least something on file that says this tenant says they don't have any concerns about their apartment. But ultimately, if we're getting into 50 or 60%, that's a really good number.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you for that. And then just the other question I had was, you talked a little bit about your departments working with the Safe Homes Task Force. And I'm curious, you gave an example of finding a jerry-rigged, for lack of a better term, provisional kind of sleeping quarters within some area where that's, certainly not the intended use. In that instance where you maybe do find that and there's no real remediation other than you just got to get rid of the sleeping quarters. Do you then kind of work with, maybe service organizations or stuff like that? Because I imagine that could point to, more significant issues for those individuals that are setting up those sleeping quarters if, that's their only option.
Yeah, so the sleeping quarters that we found that we were talking about was actually in an assembly. So picture a place of gathering. With the Safe Homes Task Force, it's typically going to be in a private dwelling or an apartment where it's not safe for somebody to be there. And by safety, I mean it might be egress, it might be health concerns. We've had animal issues. So what we do is handle the emergent, if it's an apartment where there's a landlord tenant, the town will relocate that tenant. And then we can work with both parties, landlord and tenant, to clean it up, basically. It's a lot more challenging when it's a privately owned, residence. But again, that's why I say human services is great, because they're the ones that work, and they have a lot of connections to say, here's how we can help. Here's how we can help you. But we're also working with our CERT team to train. Actually, they're doing the training tonight to train a group of these people that it might just be, regular check-ins to say, hey, we've got you to a point where your apartment or dwelling unit is safe. We're going to check in with you and make sure it's still good and kind of keep you on that path to remediating this stuff yourself, because it can be overwhelming. And a lot of times folks will just need, that initial offering of help to get to a point where it's manageable, and then they can take over from there. So there are things that we are trying to put in place, but it is a very difficult, to be honest, this is like nobody wants to take this on. So that's why splitting it into everybody has their area of expertise, it makes it a lot more manageable.
Thank you.
Councilor Bajeko.
First of all, thank you for coming tonight, and I really did not realize that you were supposed to or charged with going into every single room, whether it's an apartment or motels or whatever.
Yep.
I guess my question is regarding actually the motels on the Berlin Turnpike. In the past, there's been concerns that they're not necessarily being used as motels or hotels, or being used as apartments, basically. And there's differences, I would imagine, in people's habits versus a short-term lodging, a week, 2 weeks, versus somebody who's basically using it as an apartment, 12-month, whatever rental. When you go in there, if you identify that it's being used as a permanent housing versus as a hotel or a motel for a couple of weeks, that I guess is in violation certainly of what the motel or hotel is set up to do, their business. Do you do any kind of interaction with the police or with who do you report that to, or do you report it?
It's very difficult. So it's defined in the code as transient and non-transient. And the threshold is 30 days. So anything over 30 days would be considered non-transient. So all of the hotels have a clause that at 30 days, anybody renting their, hotel room has to leave for a night and then come back. And it's very well known that that's what they have to do. So officially we can't take enforcement action unless we sit there, for 30 days straight and say, okay, I need to see you leave. And, so yes, there are people that they're using those hotels and motels as non-transient apartments. And again, some are fine. We've walked in and it's like, okay. Others, you walk in and you present, there's concerns. But yeah, the enforcement is we just try to work with the property owner that what we see is corrected. And then again, building that relationship to say, if you have an issue, and most of the owners and operators of those motels, we want to build that relationship to say, if you have an issue, please call us. It's easier for us to deal with an issue if you bring it to us than if we find it and now we have to scramble to figure it out.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight, DJ. I just have one clarifying question. You mentioned that condos count as apartments. Does that apply to townhomes and our developments that have townhomes as well?
So it's all based on the construction.
Right.
The simplest way to explain it is it's wherever the firewalls are. So if you look at townhomes or even, apartments, if the firewalls encompass 2 units, it is a 2-family dwelling.
Gotcha.
If they encompass 3 or more, it is now an apartment.
So 4 attached townhomes.
Correct.
Okay. Very good.
Well, you could have 4 in a row, but a firewall, which again is a masonry wall, from the dirt up through the ceiling, it separates them.
Okay.
So if there's 4 dwelling units in between firewalls, that's when we would engage.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other questions from counselors? Counselor Page?
I guess I have to do this.
Yeah.
Again, sorry. I just want to reiterate that said, thank you very much for bringing us up to snuff or up to the numbers. You've done so much work in bringing those inspections up.
Thank you
very much. And staff.
Good.
All set. Thank you so much, DJ. Have a good night. Definitely appreciate it. All right, moving on in our agenda to number 5, proclamations. Tonight we'll be doing a proclamation in honor of the retirement of Richard Wall, who's retiring from our assessor's office. Proclamation. Whereas Rick Wall has been the assessment technician 2 for 13 years, and whereas Rick had a long, extensive career and vast knowledge in assessment, real estate appraisal, mass appraisal, and real estate brokerage that he brought to Newington, and whereas Rick was responsible for management of around 1,500 accounts for business, personal property, and data entry and management of over 400 commercial accounts with neat and concise organizational skills, and whereas Rick provided superb customer care and service, often going above and beyond what was required with the call. And whereas Rick contributed greatly to an upbeat and positive working environment, and now therefore be it proclaimed that the Newington Town Council hereby recognizes and extends its sincere appreciation to Rick Wall for his professional service and dedication to the town, and wishes him the best in his retirement, dated in Newington, Connecticut, this 9th day of July, 2024. Have a motion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Mankey. Do we have any discussion? Councilor Draco.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your retirement. And you came to Newington with an abundance of experience. It's just, assessment, real estate, mass appraisal, whatever. You brought so much to our town, but yet you used it to the benefit of our town. And we're fortunate that you came with a skill set and that you helped our town and you helped the office run smoothly and professionally. And I'm hoping that you will enjoy your retirement. Be safe, be healthy, and do all that you wish you could have done. Do it now. You've got the time. So thank you so much.
Mr. Page.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to reiterate that. Thank you, sir, very
Counselor Menke.
much.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Floyd.
Thank you, Mayor. Rick, thank you so much for all that you've devoted to our town, and congratulations on your retirement. I hope you, as Councilor Petrenko said, use it well. I just want to, again, echo all that's been said, which is that, oftentimes, and perhaps particularly with our assessor's office, people think, those offices are these faceless things. But they are people like you, committed people like you, remarkably talented, committed people like you, who go above and beyond in working together with folks that actually make those things run. And so you could have taken your talents anywhere, given that abundance of knowledge, but you brought it here to our community, and we are in such a debt of gratitude to you. So thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nagel. Any other questions or comments from counselors? All right. Thank you so much for your service, Mr. Walter, town of Newington. We have a motion on the table and a second. Any further discussion on this item? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Walter. Come on up, we have some gifts for you.
You gonna get a picture, Kat? Oh, she's going. Jamie, of course. Thank you, Jamie.
No, I think PJ said it all. I don't have a presentation.
No, that's okay.
Lucky you all. I just wanted to say thank you all for your very nice comments. It's been a pleasure to work here in Newington, and been with 3 different assessors. I think I've taught them everything I know, and it's time to leave. We've got a great town. I've had a good time meeting realtors and appraisers and title searchers and surveyors and all of the taxpayers that have come in with questions. And I know I'm leaving it in good hands. So thank you all very, very much. Have a good day.
Is there anybody else in the room that would like to come up and speak on behalf of or in favor for Mr. Wall? Congratulations again, Mr. Wall. There you go. There you go. Moving along, next up on the agenda is public participation. If you're in the room and like to participate in public participation, please come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. We'll alternate between in the room and on Zoom.
Eileen Franklino, 116 Lightoll Road. When I was at the council meeting on the June 25th, there were a lot of questions about what the pool committee was going to be doing, and since we didn't make the agenda tonight, and we left with the promise that this would be a transparent and open discussion. I don't expect discussion, but I just want to give you a little unofficial update about what we're doing. Oh, you could take that away? No? All right, sorry. I didn't want to look at myself. Anyway, okay, so after that meeting, I listened to the concerns of the counselors, I listened to people outside, and I wrote down everybody's questions, and best I can do is this is what I have to report. Some were concerned that we need to look at the whole park system, and that's what our charge is to look at the pools, look at both of them. That's our plan. There was a concern about parking. Technically, that's not our charge. That's the charge of the parking authority. So, it's really not anything that we have control over. Now that OFI is in the works, that's going to give us some extra parking. There's some discussion about adding some parallel parking on Garfield Street, but again, that's the parking authority's decision, and possibly some additional parking at the library. But that's not a pool and that's not our charge. So we have to, hold off on that for a little bit. Someone was concerned and said they would like an unobstructed view of the pond. We all agree. We will get rid of the bathhouse, so that'll be a big thing that you can look straight across. Some said that they were concerned whether we were going to take down the concession stand or not. That's kind of up for discussion right now. It does serve a purpose, makes the town a lot of money, especially at special events. It's a good central place to go get what you need, or at concerts or whatever. So we're kind of working that one out. Somebody else said, don't just rubber stamp what we are given. We have gone over the plans. We continue to go over the plans, and we're working on it. Don't rush to referendum. Well, we have missed the dates for the referendum and to be on a single ballot. So right now, the best we can do is either have a 2-ballot election in the fall or a standalone referendum at a later date. That has not been decided as of yet. We've only had 2 meetings, so give us time. Somebody else said, well, it's best to come up with a plan for both pools, given that our charge is to deal with both pools. Our current plan right now is to do mill, keep Churchill open as long as we can, and study what happens and see if it is still necessary to have 2 pools, or if one pool is going to meet the needs and wants of the town. It's a little hard because in the next few years, we can see a 10% increase in the number of people in our town because of all the development. So what's that going to do to the pools? We don't know. Nobody knows. We can't even guess. So we think the best thing to do right now is to study and see what happens. Some people are concerned with the open space, the footprint of the old pool versus the new pool. We also have to consider that we're adding a splash pad. And for those of you who haven't seen a splash pad, I would suggest that you take a ride out to South Windsor or go to Middletown and look at what the splash pads are. Like, go on a hot day and look what those kids are doing, and they're just awesome things. And it's nice because it extends the life of the pool. It can be open from April till the end of October. No lifeguard required. You just hit the button and it goes, and it's a great little thing. Another person said that we need to make sure that we ask questions of the experts, and our committee says that goes without saying. We've been working with Mike Fortuna, who is our architect. Bill has been a great help because he's been through this process a whole lot. James, he's going to be sorry that I ever know his name. And AJ has been very helpful getting questions from the council and getting information to us. The location, this is part of what the first committee looked into. The groundwater table has been studied thoroughly. There were borings done, and based on the architect's opinion, the Garfield location is the best location for the pool. Another. Oh, I'm sorry. She interrupted.
I waited until you started.
Okay.
talking.
Okay. Well, I'll go real fast. The amenities, needs versus wants, yes, that's in the design phase. Be sure to keep the council and the public in the loop. That's what I'm doing here. Be sure to look at the work that was done in the past. Absolutely. Do not create a Disneyland. Nope, we don't have any money for that. So that's where we are right now. If you have any questions, send them with AJ or Counselor Menke, and we'll get back to you on a meeting basis. We'll bring you a report. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Franklin. We do have one on Zoom we're gonna go to next. Whoever's number ending in 535, you are ready to go.
Hello, my name is Margaret Hart-Bannock at 145 Star Avenue in Newington, and I have questions and comments regarding item 8C, formation of an LGBTQIA plus committee.
Very good. Could
Am I
you just
being
state your
heard?
name and address for the record, please?
Yes, I did. Are you hearing me? I said Margaret Hart-Bannock at 145 Star Avenue.
Yes, now I've heard you. Thank you.
Okay, you're ready then. My first question is, how did the town council establish by fact that residents of our Newington community are experiencing discrimination, intolerance, and hatred to a degree that we need to form a special committee? In the town of Newington, what evidence of discrimination, intolerance, and hatred have the councilors in favor of this proposal presented to citizens to establish this alleged fact? For example, what number of arrests, school suspensions, or factual evidence of violence against persons who identify as LGBTQIA plus are there in town? Have the police been inundated with reports backing this claim up? I've lived in Newington for 25 years and worked in town for 17 years as well for the public. I have experienced inclusive, respectful behavior towards citizens and workers who identify as LGBTQ. I have never experienced intolerance, hatred, or discrimination. And so with all these years, I would have seen something, I would think. Current town councilor who's openly gay was elected by the general public to the council recently with large support, which is a contrary fact to this alleged discrimination. I do not see evidence of the need for this committee nor the use of public funds for this suggested unestablished problem. I would consider it a use of misuse of public funds were you to approve of any to be used without an established record of fact. Secondly, has the town council considered that raising a pride flag is discriminatory against other groups of people who feel harmed, marginalized, and discriminated against? The council has chosen one group of people to the exclusion of others, and therefore you're establishing a practice that is not inclusive. There are Jewish people, Christian people, Muslim people, people of color, people of various cultural backgrounds, men and women and others who have experienced discrimination overall. Even more importantly, raising a flag doesn't address the proposed problem, and I suggest that it further divides townspeople. Perhaps the council should consider raising a kindness counts flag that we can all agree with instead of a pride flag. And by the way, it's July 9th and the flag is still up. Thirdly, exactly how would raising a pride flag every year decrease the alleged discrimination, intolerance, and hatred? Fourth, what exactly are town councilors members seeking to celebrate via this committee? I believe that dignity is based on respect for the human person. Celebration of achievement is a worthwhile cause when it is based on good deeds, not on personal sexual preferences. I object to any proposed public programs under the category of education that teach children about sexual behavior. Citizens have varying beliefs about human sexuality and strongly diverse opinions. Therefore, the public should respect these different values by allowing parents to address this area with their children without government interference. You were elected to serve the general public, not your personal interests. Lastly, I am opposed to teaching children about gender ideology, a topic that is fraught with dispute in social and medical sciences with no scientifically established evidence-based supporting the use of affirmative practices. Gender ideology is confusing, increases anxiety, and is harmful to children. Please review the studies found on the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine at segm.org/studies. And in conclusion, the Town Council is very unwise to establish town practices that are currently topics of heated debate among social science and medical professional experts. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, we do have someone in the room.
Hi, Mark France, 288 Williams, Town Court, Newington. And I hope I could, I hope this flag is in vision of the audience. I am fully 100% in support of LGBTQIA+ rights. And I will self-disclose as my own authority. I don't need an scgm.org website. I can be my own resource. And I would hope the town could use my situation, my lived experiences as a proud, not only ally, but also one with lived experiences with LGBTQIA+. I agree with the majority here on this council and Mayor Trister, Deputy Mayor Lada, Councilor Plord, Councilor Gonzalez, Councilor Tiniakos. I would hope Councilor Mankey, Councilor Budraco, Councilor Nagel, not to make this partisan, because that's not who I am as a person. I'm an equal opportunity person, period. There's one thing about Mark Carl Francis that I want to be stated for the record, is that I know I pay my taxes to the town of Newington, and as a stakeholder for the taxes that I pay, I personally want to see the growth and progress there. I sound like a broken record because every time I come up to this microphone, I will always remind the head, our servant leaders, help with servant leaders here, servant leaders, that growth and progress sometimes requires that we as stakeholders look out for the better interests of the people that are vulnerable and marginalized among us. This is emotional manipulation, I believe. In my opinion, this man represents quite frankly, a psychologically, emotionally subversive, manipulative way of taking a Mark Carl France and subjugating them. That's how I personally feel about Miss Bennett's comment. If with all due respect to Miss Bennett, I go to church with her as well. Having said that aside, I, Mark Carl France, stand behind everything that this flag stands for now. And I hope that what this flag stands for now will be codified, put into law in Newington for the safety and the well-being of the most vulnerable and marginalized among us, including the 47-year-old adult Mark Carl Francis of Newington, who came here from Hartford fleeing from closet behavior. If you want to talk about social science, you know, it happens in families where someone in the family, an uncle, a cousin, a trusted family member, starts with the manipulation, whether it's psychological or whether it's more overt. I will not stand for Ms. Bannock's comment, with all due respect to her dignity as a human person, nor will I stand for anyone who will, let me say it in the positive with 10 seconds left. We need to come together to heal as a town, okay? And I like to see resources of healing in this town. And I count on the council as a stakeholder to please have an open mind and an open heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more on Zoom. Phone number ending in 070. Please go right ahead.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. I am really sorry that I didn't come up there tonight because the one thing I wanted to do was to congratulate Rick on his retirement. The Zoom application has been awful, in and out. But anyway, if he's not there, I will send a little note out to him and tell him how much I appreciated his help over the years, and I wish him the best in his retirement. I'm hoping that the Ethics Board is going to make a report to the committee at some point in time. I saw Lynn Connery's resignation, and quite honestly, I don't blame her for resigning. I think that this is something that has to be addressed at the next charter revision, and I'm hoping that this council and any other council going forward is keeping a list, perhaps the town manager is, of things that should be addressed or could be addressed in the next opening of the charter. I've been watching the town hall pool committee, and I thought that the charge of that committee was to work with the town manager and or his or her designee for upgrades to the town's aquatic facilities, including Mill Pond and Churchill Parks. I'm just curious who the town manager's designee is. I didn't see anyone at either of those meetings other than James at the first one, and I don't think he was there as the town manager's designee. I also would like to know what the role is of the Parks and Rec director on that committee, because he seemed to be doing an awful lot of talking at the meeting last night. Perhaps someone can define for me also what the town's aquatic facilities actually are, because I'm a little confused because they specified Mill Pond and Churchill Park. Is there another aquatic facility? Is the Newington High School pool considered our town responsibility or that of the Board of Education? After listening to the first two meetings, I've come to the conclusion that this committee has come to a decision as to what they envision as upgrades for the pool, and they agree that it should be on Garfield Street, although I've never heard any discussions about any other options. And at the March 2023 meeting of the Mill Pond Pool Committee, there were several questions from the mayor, and I don't think those were ever answered. There's never been any votes. There's just been discussions around the table regarding the splash pad, benches for parents to sit on, shade shelters, flag football fields, and even the concession stands, which I heard part of what Eileen was saying, and she did indicate some of that is not within their purview. But someone has to be at these meetings, I think, to rein them in, to let them know what their actual charge is. It seems to me that they're more focused on getting this to referendum as fast as they can and full speed ahead. And this is a $12 million project. As a taxpayer, I'd like to know where the monies are coming from. And as one Facebook poster noted, this committee on steroids has to be more specific as to where these funds are coming from before it goes to ballot. Slow down. Make sure that the voters know what your plan is, where the money's coming from, can we afford it, because I'd hate to see it fail. I want to see this go forward, but it's not being open and transparent as I had hoped it would be. Seems there's a lot of side conversations going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
This camera's too close. Dana Havens, 113 Stoddard Avenue. I attended the first two meetings of the new Town Pools Project Building Committee. From what I heard and saw, a more appropriate name for the new committee would be the Push Mill Pond Pool Through at All Costs Committee. You charge the committee with the development of plans to upgrade the town's aquatic facilities, including those located at Mill Pond and Churchill Park. At the first meeting, they were wrapping up discussion, having only spoken about Mill Pond and AJ. Reminding them they need to talk about Churchill too. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of history here. At the June 18th Parks and Rec Committee meeting, at about 41 minutes in, you'll hear the P&R director say he thinks a new pool will be enough with having a splash pad in Churchill, and no one in town has the will to build two pools, wants to pay for two pools. Then at the first meeting of the new committee, almost the same thing was said. At this time, we can't predict the need of a second pool at Churchill. When I expressed my concerns at that meeting about closing Churchill, they denied having said it. So I'm asking you to go to the video of the first town pool committee meeting. And about 46 minutes in, you'll hear the P&R director say the new pool committee to the new pool committee. He believes it's better to run Churchill Pool into the ground and then use the water system for a splash pad. And then at an hour 46 in, you'll hear the chairman say, if we hit the town with 10 million for one pool and 10 million for the other pool, we won't have a chance in hell. So after having heard all that and the committee saying to my face, they never said it, then I'm left trying to figure out if they really intend to close Churchill Pool, or do they just want us to think that they're going to do that in an effort to make us think we only have to pay for one pool and then move the redesign of Mill Pond ahead and get to push the referendum this year. They did at last night's meeting have preliminary drawings of options for the splash pad and mentioned putting one at Churchill. I'm guessing to address AJ's concerns, and after he came back with what he had spoke to his party about and came back to them, let me know. At the end of the first new committee meeting, I brought up the other location options for Mill Pond Pool. Those are keeping it where it is, but with everything brand spanking new for about 1.7 million and the location near the playground. And I had hoped to see them discuss at the next meeting. Well, at yesterday's meeting, they weren't brought up at all. Instead, trying to figure out the dates to get it to referendum by November were discussed. When I spoke with the chair after last night's meeting about the option of having the pool near the playground, she said it couldn't be done because of the water table. That's not true. At the March 2023 meeting, the architect said, and I quote, engineering it and coming up with a solution to solve the groundwater problem there at the playground, it's not a real heavy lift. I mean, the technologies are available. When I voiced my concerns over the length of the walk to the new pool from the parking lot in Browning Ave by the playground, they said there'd be parking at OFI, which I'm sorry, it's still too far of a walk if you ask me. They also said they're planning on adding parallel parking on Garfield as well as an extra row being put in at the library. I'm not sure how that's going to happen since it was previously attempted because of the town hall and met with strong opposition by both the library folks and the public. Anyway, I said some of their parking solutions were still very far, and it was answered by saying, well, Churchill's a long walk too, so what's the difference? I haven't had back injuries and knee injuries. I think there's a big difference there. And I won't even go into all the times the campers were brought up and how this was going to benefit them being so close versus how many times residents were brought up other than to say it was far from even. So to sum it all up, the new committee seems like a farce. That its true charge is to get the Garfield site planned a referendum this November.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Natalie, I want.
Hello, Greg Ostrowski, 267 Audubon Avenue. For thousands of years, humans have developed society in the same way throughout the world. Dense population centers surrounded by lighter density agricultural land. With the advent of industrialization and rapid transit, development patterns shifted to developing not just in cities, but along transit corridors. This development pattern even created its own defining characteristics that were so noticeable, they were given their own names, one of which is the streetcar suburb. If you look at historical topographic maps of Newington, and even the layout of the town today, you can recognize this development pattern. A streetcar ran from Hartford right down Main Street, turning onto Walsh before connecting to New Britain. You can see the development corridor created by the streetcar in the layout of the streets and the buildings along it. All of this was thrown out the window in the name of cars. Car-focused development has its place, but the extreme we here in the States have taken it to means that there is almost no reasonable way to travel without one. The rest of the world has seen the benefits of mass transit and reaped the benefits of the efficiency, development, and value that comes with it. And throughout the United States, we're starting to recognize that. Some excellent examples of the benefits that come with mass transit can be seen in Berlin, Meriden, and New Britain through the rapidly revitalizing downtowns. West Hartford and Hartford have recently improved hundreds of units of transit-oriented and affordable housing around the Fast Track and Union Station. These developments are designed specifically to encourage residents to make use of transit rather than drive, getting cars off the road and alleviating traffic for the rest of us. Some newly built transit-oriented developments around the country have been studied and were found to generate less than 50% of car trips than those generated by suburbs of similar size. But it's a chicken and egg situation. Which comes first? At some point, investment must be made into one or the other, but the logical first step is to lay out required infrastructure. We here in Newington should do everything in our power to construct a train station in town and actively work to encourage transit-oriented development around it. Also, my wife said I couldn't come here without saying she wanted a splash pad, so. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Stransky.
Did your job.
We'll send you a note.
Good evening, Mayor Twister, Town Councilman, and Tim Trevan, Town Manager. My name is Stanley Sobieski. I reside at 26 Depot Drive, Newington, Connecticut. I'm here tonight to rise in support of a rail station. If I remember my history correctly, it was voted on 3 or 4 years ago, put the station on Cedar Street. Reason why it can't go to Newington Junction because DOT does not want it there. There's not enough parking. It's not an access area to the major highways. And that's why the DOT requested that we move it over to Cedar Street. Secondly, you know, we do have an opportunity here to make that a second transit-oriented area where we can actually make it transit-oriented area. Not put a car wash in, not put a hotel in, and certainly not put a drive-in restaurant. None of that fits into a DOT area. And I argued with the TPZ chairman at that time, and I've got several remarks that are on public record. I was told we need the car wash to wash the limousines for people who take it to the busway. That was his quote. I'm not going to go through the rest of them. Anyway, we have a golden opportunity here to put a rail station in and actually revitalize that area. We also have another opportunity to revitalize the center of town. We have bus 144 that starts over in Jordan Lane in Weathersfield, down a turnpike, up Arrow Road, down Russell, and around and comes into the center of town. We could then have that bus swing into the train station, pick up people, bring them over to Central, back into the center of town to help our businesses thrive. You know, by taking and adding more transit buses way over there, it doesn't work. And I know I retired from the DOT as a transportation planner. All right, so let's look at what's really important. Let's look what's going to work for the town of Newington. We can, if we plan this right and we work together, State of Connecticut Department of Transportation, we can actually take and alleviate some vehicles on Cedar Street. Years ago, when I was a kid, I'm not going to go back to the era, but anyway, New Haven Railroad used to run trains through here, and they would pick up kids and bring them to schools in Hartford at a reduced rate, round trip. We can do the same thing today by taking students coming to Central from the northern part of the state, the southern part of the state, getting off at that rail station and busing them up to the Central. Now, by doing that, we're going to take traffic off of Cedar Street, and we all know how bad traffic is on Cedar Street. And if you haven't been on there, you ought to try it sometime. So I'm asking you please to consider moving the station and get it going. We need to move forward with this. Thank you for your time.
Hi, we're going back to the poll. My name is Jason Hip, 54 Woodmere Road. I'm Newington, obviously. I have a few questions. I hear that the poll committee is meeting twice a week, so in conjunction with a few people ended up saying that it wants to go to referendum quickly, so I'm kind of questioning that. To the engineer design, Mr. Fortuna might have ended up putting forth the design. I'm going to ask, how old is this plan? How long ago was it? I would like to see maybe the Democrats pick a consult of their choice, and the Republicans do a consult on their side, and then kind of come together to see, you know, how we can collaborate together for a mutually agreed upon plan. 3, after that's done, I know that there's a committee that's formed, but just like the gentleman here, DJ, did a presentation for the firefighting or fire marshal office. And then about a month ago, there's a lady who did the presentation for the OFI. It would be lovely to go and see a presentation like that during your meeting. So, you know, everybody can go and see what's been produced by both the two consults. I'd like to say for myself, I do own a pole at my house, and I did have it redone 2 years ago. So originally, whenever I did the contract, they came in and I thought that they were gonna have to jackhammer down about 2-3 feet of concrete and report. The assessors did come in and they said, hey, you know, didn't get the cheap Chinese garbage that they're pouring foundations up in Manchester. So your concrete is good US stuff. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna save you $10,000, which is like 20,000 or 20% of what my pool cost was gonna be. So that was a savings for me. So if you have to go and redo the pools, which my kids do go to the pools during the summer, and I do have to say that they do some scratches on their feet, but nothing that a little bit of TLC and some Band-Aids to take care of at this point. But for how you have the zoning plans already dedicated with the pool already, maybe with the build out of the splash pad or additional facilities adjacent to it, I don't think you have to do too much recoding to just go and refurbish it. But to take $12 million and really put it into refurbishing what we have rather than a complete build out, I think it'd be a little bit more cost effective. And then I know that everybody's saying Garfield Street, but like I look at do an aerial, the thing I'm seeing is the green space that you have the extravaganza. So as I'm going to be going to the extravaganza here real soon, as I'm walking around, I'm going to be thinking, oh my gosh, am I actually walking on the pool right now? So that's all I got to say. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Kelly DeHaas, 45 Lincoln Road. I'm here tonight regarding the proposed Town of Newington Pride Committee. Councilor Clark, I would first like to thank you for your apology after the June meeting spoke at for the tone of your response. Both you and Councilor Tiniakos had mentioned ongoing conversations about the Pride Committee. Unfortunately, I wasn't informed of an opportunity to continue that conversation since then. Still open to it. After reading this updated resolution, my original concerns still stand, and I now have some questions. The entire resolution sounds as though it's written from a victim's perspective and claims that those in the LGBTQ community in town are victims of discrimination, intolerance, and hate that has harmed the ability of residents to live openly, equally, and without fear. To me, the claims of discrimination, intolerance, and hate are very serious claims. I would like to know what evidence of discrimination or data-driven research are being used to back up these claims. A 30-second Google search today told me that Newington's violent crime rate is lower than the national average. I brought copies of statistics that I found on citydata.com if you would like to view them tonight. My preference would be to see statistics directly from our police department, but I was working within a time constraint and couldn't get them. I'm sure this will be met with remarks about national stats provided by a sympathetic organization, but we're not talking about the nation, we're talking about our town. And the statistics used to substantiate any claims should be relevant to our town, or the claim should be removed. This resolution also seeks to validate the self-worth of individuals who identify with the LGBTQ community through the affirmation and celebration of them by the public. Are you implying that these individuals cannot feel dignified, visible, or whole without the committee and subsequent public events? If a person is leading a life that makes them happy, then I see no reason why the approval of strangers is necessary to the quality of their life. I'd like to live my life without interference, just as I allow others to live theirs without my interference. The purpose of this committee tramples the boundaries surrounding sexual topics for residents and families in Newington. That's quite the interference, and dare I say, intolerant of those that lead a life outside of the LGBTQ community. It's exemplifying exactly what you're claiming to be fighting against. I further note that the committee will be responsible for collection and accounting for any funds or donations received as part of their operations. Funds and donations are specifically mentioned separately on several occasions, leading me to the conclusion that funds are taxpayer dollars and donations are voluntary contributions made to the cause. This committee is not for the good of the town as a whole. Rather, it is a celebration of a group of individuals in their sexuality and identification. This should not require a committee, and it absolutely should not be funded by taxpayer dollars. I do not support this resolution or the use of taxpayer dollars to support and promote the lifestyles of a specific group of people under the guise of creating a safer space for all residents to live openly, equally, and without fear. I've also heard mention in calling the community vulnerable multiple times tonight. I would like to say the most vulnerable community is the children of this town. The children of this town don't get a voice unless an adult stands up for them. I can't bring in my 6-year-old and have her ask you questions about this. She doesn't know about it, but I can't bring her in and ask you questions. I have to stand here today to protect the innocence of the sexuality and identification that she is not yet mature enough to understand. So, and if we're talking about vulnerability, I'm asking you to think of the minors and the children in this town as well. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Tony Mealy, 124 Apple Hill in Newington. I am a Board of Education member, new, still learning, got a learning curve on that one for sure. I'm going to start this out. I want to be clear, we're all children of God. That's one. Two, I have family and friends that are gay and lesbian. That's number two. Having said that, I read this proposal and I'm late to the game on this. I didn't realize this was out there. And my opinion is this is a personal agenda pushing a false narrative. Now, I've been a police officer for 46 years and still currently a police officer. I've seen a lot. Back in the 90s, there was actual hate crimes against gays. It's called gay bashing. And I investigated a lot of those crimes. And most of the time it was these young men waiting outside gay men's bars and beating them up when they came out. And that was 35 years ago. You don't read about that anymore. You don't hear about that anymore. My opinion is, in my 46 years as a career law enforcement officer, we're living in the most tolerant times when it comes to people. I realize there's a lot of division lately on party lines and stuff like that, but I believe that's intentional. Again, I know my children and everybody I know is very tolerant of the gay community. I got a couple other things, but what I'm going to do is I want to read this. Basically, it's their proclamation. It's by the group Gays Against Groomers. And I personally believe you could take the LG and everything after that, you could name groomers. Lesbian, gays, in my opinion, the rest of it, groomers, okay? Gays Against Groomers is a 501(c) nonprofit of gays, lesbians, and others in the community who oppose the sexualization, indoctrination, and mutilation of children under the guise of radical LGBTQIA+ activism. We are moms and dads, couples, siblings, husbands and wives, families and friends, typical gay American men and women who live our lives just like everyone else. Our mission is twofold: to end the war on children being carried out in our name and to reclaim the community we once called our own, which at this point has become unrecognizable. What we are witnessing is mass-scale child abuse being perpetrated on an entire generation, and we will no longer sit by and watch it happen. From its inception in 2022, Gays Against Groomers has shut down, quote, family-friendly drag shows aimed at children, lobbied for bills preventing child abuse and mutilation, given speeches at school board meetings, organized rallies, protests, and spoken out from within the community and endorsed candidates who unequivocally condemn the current state of our gender movement as much as we do. Gender ideology isn't just a neo-religious cult. It is a biotechnological warfare in drag. Its propaganda machine is relentless, like a multi-headed hydra with claws in every corporate sector. Those in mainstream media who endorse the trans agenda fail to represent the interests and concerns of gay people. The agenda is wreaking havoc in our schools, in our government and legal sector, and in the medical community at the expense of millions of us who disagree with prioritizing so-called gender identity over material reality. We of Gays Against Groomers are determined to put a stop to this insanity once and for all. Do I have any time left, sir? No. Thank you very much. God bless everybody.
Anybody else in the room or over Zoom that would like to participate in public participation? Right, seeing none. We did receive a couple of pieces of email correspondence, received an email from Victoria Soroza, who had some concerns about littering. And we received an email from Andre Andreas, who was against the Pride Committee. Both emails to be added to the record. Was there any other correspondence to this one? All right, we will move along to remarks by councilors on public participation. Councilor Tiniakis. Remember, it's please on mute.
Yeah. So just in the remarks, I don't have your contact information, unfortunately. So I'm more than happy to give it to you. But it's also available online. But give me like a quick Google or something like that. You'll get my phone number, my email, and all that. So more than happy to talk to you. And then you had mentioned that everyone after the LGB or LG is a groomer. So I would love to talk, in your opinion, I would love to talk to you later and you could explain to me how my wife is a groomer, in your opinion. I'd love to have that conversation. Thank you.
Any other councilors on public participation? Seeing none, we'll move on to consideration of full business. Agenda item 8. 8A, human resource finance staff assistant job description. Deputy Mayor Riley, please read this.
If I may, while you find it, they're still working on the hardware issues, seem to be in like different parts of the building, so it's not just us. So if you're speaking, everybody, Zoom is working fine, but you just speak up really loud so people can hear you in the room. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby approves the amendment to the classification and pay plan by approving a job description for human resource / finance assistant paid position as recommended by James Trevethan, acting town manager in her capacity as personnel director.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Riley.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Mackey. Any discussion on this? Moving on. Susan, can we have a roll call vote on this, please?
Yes, Councilor Draco,
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilor Mackey,
Yes.
Councilor Nagel,
Yes.
Councilor Page,
Yes.
Councilor Ford,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rada,
Yes.
Councilor Siniakos,
Yes.
Mayor Tristan.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Moving along, next item on the agenda is item 8B, Facilities Naming Committee. A few things to be referred to that. And Councilor Floyd, would you please read the resolution? You can find it.
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby submits the following to the Facilities Naming Subcommittee for consideration pursuant to the naming of town-owned property and features policy adopted February 13th, 2007. Jerry LaCase, Alan Tancredi, Fred Callahan, Rick Callahan, and James H. Trommer.
Motion by Councilor Floyd.
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Rada. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. To item 8C, LGBTQIA plus committee. Councilor Page, would you please read the resolution? It's a long one, I think. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, Marilyn. Town of Newington LGBTQIA plus committee, whereas the town of Newington is committed to advancing the inclusivity of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual LGBTQIA plus residents, employees, and guests in the community, and has an affirmative responsibility to foster dialogue and build greater understanding. And whereas the town council recognizes the unique challenges faced by members of the LGBTQIA plus community and acknowledges an intersectional history of discrimination, intolerance, and hate that has harmed the ability of residents to openly, equally, and without fear. And whereas the town council seeks to ensure that its policies enhance the health, safety, and opportunity of historically marginalized and underserved communities. Whereas in June of 2024, the town council raised the pride flag over Newington Town Hall in recognition of Pride Month for the first time. And whereas in order to plan, organize, and execute an annual pride flag raising, subsequent celebratory and affirming events, and educational programs, cultural and learning opportunities and forums, and to work with relevant town departments, agencies, and staff to advance the dignity, visibility, and well-being of the LGBTQIA plus community in the town of Newington, the town council shall establish an LGBTQIA plus committee in the town of Newington, and whereas the town council shall solicit applications for appointment to the LGBTQIA plus committee from the citizens of Newington. Applications may be in the form of a letter of interest or resume. Applications are to be sent to the town manager's office no later than August 1st, 2024. Members will be selected by the mayor, majority and minority leader. Members will be selected regardless of political party. The term of office is from date of appointment and for a period of 2 years following. And whereas the LGBTQIA plus committee shall consist of no more than 15 members, the chairperson, vice chairperson, secretary, and treasurer shall be elected by the committee as a whole. These officers, along with 3 other at-large members elected from the body, shall serve as the executive committee. And whereas the LGBTQIA plus committee shall be subject to the rules, policies, and procedures for all town boards and commissions and the requirements of Freedom of Information Act in regards to the posting and filing of all agendas and minutes for such committee or subcommittee so created. And whereas the LGBTQIA plus committee shall report to the town council on a regular basis, and whereas the chair of the Human Rights Commission shall be an ex officio member of the committee, and whereas the LGBTQI plus committee shall have the authority to form any subcommittees as it may require. The LGBTQI plus committee shall ask for additional volunteers to serve on these subcommittees other than the members of the LGBTQI plus committee from the public at large. The LGBTQI plus committee will be responsible for collection and accounting for any funds or donations received as part of their operations. Accounting for all funds or donations shall be submitted to the Newington Finance Director and the Town Manager's Office on a quarterly basis. This accounting shall include all funds or donations collected or dispersed. At the end of each annual fiscal year, there shall be final accounting made to the Finance Director, Town Manager, and the Town Council. And now therefore be it resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby creates the Town of Newington LGBTQIA plus committee.
Thank you, Counselor. Motion by Counselor Page.
Second.
Second by Counselor Floyd. Any discussion? Counselor Page.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate everyone turning out, either in favor of this resolution or against, and airing your opinions. I too have family who identify as queer, and an active part of the queer community, and I've disturbed that they would be considered a groomer by anyone, as Counselor Tinyak has pointed out. And let me finish, please, sir, and then there is a time at some other point for response. And I understand that's an opinion, and everyone has a right to express an opinion. To me, it's evidence that this is why, in part, why we're doing this, and in our correspondence in an email that we received, there was a gentleman who spoke, and I believe he articulately spoke at a previous meeting, his opinion, which was in disagreement with this resolution, about the American flag representing all of us, all 330 million of us in this country. It doesn't. As a privileged, very, very privileged, old, white, straight male, I have felt for my 63 years that it has represented me quite nicely. I can go anywhere and pretty much do anything I want simply because I was born white and straight and male. Because many people under that same beautiful flag we have that signifies freedom for we the people cannot do that because they're black or brown or gay or straight or transgender or identify as queer or gender fluid or pansexual or etc. And they are, as you pointed out, sir, have been attacked. And in parts of this country, and I would trust people who represented the statistics of this town as accurate. I don't have the data to dispute that, so I would take that as accepted, unless there's evidence to report otherwise. But my last comment here, I could go on and on, but my last comment is part of my role, I think, as an elected leader is to take steps actively to push back on what is a national trend over the last several years, 6 or 8 or 10 years, where there has been permission given at the highest levels of our government to be hateful towards people who are not heteronormative and are not binary and don't represent what traditionally has been accepted as either male or female. And because of that hatred, and it has now been codified in policy throughout much of the southern parts of this country and some of the Rocky Mountain and western parts of this country, that explicitly excludes and marginalizes even further, officially, with hundreds and hundreds of local, state policies, that is harming our fellow Americans, we the people. And so I take my responsibility to do what I can in our humble little 31,000 plus community to say we are going to push back. We are going to take a stand, and let's engage in this dialogue with everyone here is a well-meaning person and loves this community. And I truly believe, I also believe we're children of God, and I have faith in Jesus Christ as my savior. And I believe that Jesus believes that we need to show this love to each other. So that's why I support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Deputy Mayor Rada.
I too will speak very briefly in support of this resolution. We are fortunate here in Newington and that we have the opportunity both at the beginning, at the end of all of our boards and commissions and council meetings to enable folks to feel comfortable and are invited to come and present and speak. And I appreciate the opportunity to listen to what folks have to say. And I hope that this is a space that is a safe space for everyone to speak. We are not always going to agree with one another. And there is a lot for all of us to learn and a lot of unfortunate misinformation that is available and I'm looking towards this committee as one that will work in concert with a variety of boards, a variety of groups, a variety of individuals in this community to make us an even more welcoming, respectful, and loving community, excuse me, than we already are. Now, that said, I do have 2 edits that I'd like to. Cannon, you may have the same, Councilor Nagel, we'll see. The first, second, third, fourth to fifth paragraph down. Educational programs, cultural, it should be learning opportunities. Just want to change that. And then the very last paragraph, the whereas paragraph, about 2/3 of the way down, the town manager's office, that should be manager apostrophe S. There may be more that I haven't found that others will see as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Counselor Floyd.
Thank you, Mayor.
We'll unmute that.
Oh, let me see. Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you. To start, just a few edits as well, minor things. You can be forgiven for not catching them. At the start, at first paragraph, we have a quotation mark, and not a quotation mark. It should be excuse me, I should specify in parentheses LGBTQIA. It should be 2 quotation marks. The second paragraph, the comma after the word fear should be a semicolon. Just going on further on the second page here. Subcommittees should be made one word. And that is on the first line and the second line towards the end of both of those lines. And that's all I had for those edits. I'm just going to say a few things. I want to be brief as well, in saying that this dialogue here, as has already been said, I think to Councilor Page's point, is precisely why a committee like this is useful and helpful. And I think, and I have faith, potentially transformative to the way that we talk about this issue and the way that we welcome this community, in our town. So I take this discussion here as evidence that those discussions need to continue. The first section of this committee's charge says that it is our affirmative responsibility as a council to foster dialogue and build greater understanding. That is why I enter this chamber every night that we have a meeting. That's why I'm a part of this council. That's why we're all, I think I venture to say, a part of this council in either a large part or certainly a part among many. And I take that very seriously. And I think this committee needs to understand, as it moves forward, should it pass this evening, that that is its guiding light. That every action it takes, every program it supports, every discussion it engages in, every event it may plan, needs to be with the intention of fostering dialogue, of having hard conversation, because that's what we're here to do. And if we don't do that, we are just pushing agendas or just playing party politics, and that's useless. That does nothing for our community. It's done nothing in the past. It will continue to do nothing moving forward. So I have a lot of faith that this committee and the discussions it engages in will be productive, that they'll affirm and support members of this community and outside of it in engaging in courageous conversation about what it means to be a member of our town and what it means to be an American. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. Thank you. One additional was just first page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 6, 7, 8th paragraph down, same edit, subcommittees on the last line should be one word right now. It's a hyphen. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nagel.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, make sure you unmute. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
I was listening intently to previous speakers. I have a problem with this resolution still, which is I'm quite conflicting. Having to do with what are affirming events, kind of educational programs, what learning opportunities, what do they mean? They're very broad. I still, as I stated last time, that 15 members, I know it now says, maybe it did last time, no more than 15, probably would be difficult for the group to get a quorum together. I also question what meeting with the council on a regular basis means. It kind of seems like they're going to meet every month, every 2 months, or whatever. Or I know in many committees that we have, when it is an opportunity and there is a question that they will meet. So I don't know what that means, and if it means more frequently than any other group that we happen to have. I also think it's rather, though it may have been changed somewhat in the on page 2 from the last reading of this resolution, an accounting of any funds and donations received. Where do these funds come from? Rather generalization. I know many people have spoken out that they specifically don't want their funds from the general community to go for any specific group that they may not agree with, but they would agree with a group that benefits the entire community. And that's, so that seems rather general to me. So I've stated previously that the gay or pride committee or whatever you wish to call it would be beneficial in some way or another. When you attach it to government, it gets to be political, small p, large p, which is questionable to me. So that this resolution I'm uncomfortable with, not necessarily the original intent, what I see it as being, which hopefully is not political in the wrong sense of the word. So conflicted, and in its present term, I would abstain from accepting this with the knowledge of what I've said. Con. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Nagle. Councilor Gonzalez.
After hearing a lot of the comments tonight, I feel even stronger that it is important to have this committee. I appreciate your views. I have different views, but I do appreciate that you were strong enough to come out here and voice your opinions. I have a child who is bisexual, and I know some of the people speaking were asking for specific incidents of things happening and you weren't aware of it. And I understand that probably you're not if you don't have somebody, involved in that. Feel free to reach out to me. I can discuss things with you, give you specifics on things that have happened in the school system, how the school system has handled it. As far as Councilor Nagle was asking about funds, and I think some of the people who came up to speak to, just an example of funds could be signs. And I'm just saying that because there's signs are big everywhere, all different things nowadays. So if there was a sign, somebody would pay for it, money would come in, that's a fund. So that's it. And I think asking questions is important. Sometimes
Councilor Mankey.
Thank you. I have one housekeeping item just before I get to my comments. It says we have applications should be in by August 1st. It's now the 9th, I think. The 9th, so it'll be the 10th of July. I wonder if we shouldn't extend that out August 1st. It only gives you 20 days, 21 days. And that's might be a tight time frame. I've kind of gone back and forth on this committee or this proposal. So I just want to share my concerns, my thoughts, I guess. I'm not really necessarily concerns, but I would have rather seen this more inclusive. I think Councilor Page's comments are correct. There are many people in our society that are marginalized, not just on this group, but a lot of other groups. And I would rather have seen a committee that would try to bring all those people together and do something for all those people. I'm not sure we need a town committee to do this. We could at any time a group of people get together and form their own committee and sort of, in some sense, not be tied down by town requirements and town rules and accounting and all that stuff. They could have done it at any point and formed a committee, and it would have been fine. I think there's a lot of examples of committees all across our town. Where people get together for a cause or a concern or a project, and they form a committee and they work on it. I think that could have been done here. My main concern, though, is that we talk about how this should be uniting,
right? But nobody on my side of this great divide that seems to run between Councilor Page and myself were invited to have any part of writing this proclamation. We were given this proclamation not at an agenda setting meeting where this would come up and put on the agenda. It was all of a sudden put on the agenda by the majority party. And no place, in any place, did anybody consult me at least, or I can speak for myself, I can't speak for those to my left here, but nobody consulted us about how does this sound? Can we look at it and maybe look at it together as a committee? And I think that was a missed opportunity. If we really want to be bipartisan is a lot of work. You have to consult us, we have to consult you. In this case, nobody consulted us at all about this, which is a shame because we may not have had any suggestions, but it would have been a good opportunity to show that to the public that we're trying to show that we're all in favor, or we're all supportive and we're all working together. That wasn't done in this case, and I think that's a missed opportunity on your part, your folks' part, because you had a chance to make this a more bipartisan effort, at least by making a show of asking us what we should include. That wasn't even contemplated.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Jacob.
Okay, in my belief, our charge in the municipality is to maintain an environment where every resident feels safe and can express and be whoever they are and aren't discriminated against in education, employment, political opportunities, housing, services, regardless of their sexual orientation, their race, their religion, their ethnicity, their age, their physical abilities or disabilities, to ensure that people are treated with respect and dignity without interference in personal matters or personal life choices. And in that regard, the LGBTQ IA plus is no more or no less deserving than other groups who have been historically marginalized and quite frankly continue to be marginalized. We're talking about the people of color, people of Asian, Pacific Asian ethnicity. There's ageism as a very big topic now, sexism, victims of domestic assault who feel that they have to hide and are ashamed, people with developmental disabilities or physical disabilities who quite frankly have never even had a chance. They've been, they're confined to wheelchairs or haven't even had a chance to have a life. They're invisible as well. They're invisible, they're marginalized, and have been victims of missed opportunities. I supported the flying the flag, and I supported the resolution for, the month to support gay pride. But I cannot support a year-round commission specifically devoted to one group who feels exceptionally marginalized or invisible or discriminated against, when I know that there are many other people in this community who feel the same way but don't necessarily have the resources or the advocacy group behind them. As one of the public speakers had said, thank God we've come a long way. 35 years ago, yes, there was gay bashing. I mean, it was accepted. It was not safe. We've come a long way, thank God. And the gay community, the LGBTQIA plus, has an increasing presence and out of the shadows in terms of being positively portrayed, thank goodness, in television shows and series, in commercials. You see an awful lot of same-sex couples, and the movies, the media, public service announcements throughout the whole month of June. There's sports stars and celebrities who are publicly advocating in support of the gay community. members of the community serve openly in our town and on our state and national positions. Yeah, I'm not a member of that community, but I'm sure, so I can't speak, I can't say, I know how you feel, I can't. But this particular community has thank goodness, has an awful lot of opportunities for advocacy, education, opportunities for people to get involved and come out and be proud of who they are and what they do. But there's an awful lot of other groups that don't have that visibility, that don't have that opportunity. And I cannot, I just can't support elevating one cause or group to a permanent commission at the exclusion where there are other marginalized groups. And quite frankly, when I read this, the purpose of this committee, I also am looking at the Human Rights Commission. The purpose, right from the Rights Commission, the purpose of this commission shall be as follows: to promote mutual understanding and respect among all racial, religious, ethnic, and other groups, to secure equality of treatment of an opportunity for all human beings, to cooperate with governmental and non-governmental agencies and organizations having like or kindred functions to those of this commission as it deems necessary or desirable, to make such studies in the field of human rights. The judgment of the commission will aid in affecting its general purpose. Now, to me, the clauses that are articulated in this proposed committee can easily fall under the realm of the Human Rights Commission. That is their charge. That is where, in my opinion, it belongs, rather than separating out one group, creating a special commission for them. And then, as was said last time, well, everybody else, can go pound sand and be, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, but everybody else can go under the Human Rights Commission. Well, why can't all of them go under the Human Rights Commission? Make this a stronger commission, make this a commission that speaks for everyone, every group who feels marginalized, invisible, or discriminated against. Again, unless this particular committee that we're discussing now is inclusive of other groups, I can't support singling out and elevating one group to special status when there's many other people, groups, and causes who feel that they've been marginalized as well. So I think we should just get this to a vote, and because if no one, well, whatever. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councilor Mackey, did you stand up?
Yeah, I did. Make my
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing, Councilor Mankey, to your point that August 1st deadline is coming up very quickly. I suggest maybe perhaps September 1st, give another month or so. But if others have suggestions as to other dates, feel welcome. So, I'm sorry. And then I just want to say a couple of things to some of the comments that were made, which are very well taken, and I know are made with the utmost good intention by far. A lot of other communities have these kinds of commissions. I've seen in some communities they form them for the duration of time that it takes to do a community needs assessment directed at that community that committee, excuse me, has cognizance over. They do that community needs assessment, they do some other things, and then they cycle a new committee in that works on the needs of another community. There are models for this. A lot of the language, Councilor Nagel, that you referred to in terms of meeting with the council, or I guess reporting to the council on a regular basis, and and the use of funds that's pulled from other committees that we have here in town. It's not new language, it's existing language in our charter for various other committees. So I'll just leave it at that, just to say that this is not especially novel. We are looking at other communities and our own community in terms of the structure, in terms of the membership, in terms of its function. And to the extent that it might be new, I think it may create new avenues for other opportunities for inclusion and discussion and unification. So thank you.
We are getting there on the town manager search update. We have interviews set up for July 15th. Hopefully have more after that for discussion. Any other comments from the committee on this? All right. Yep, go right ahead, Counselor.
I would just point out, we are not choosing a town manager on the 15th. We're just doing the interviews.
Interviews.
I don't want to wake up on the 16th and wonder who the hell it is. Because you won't know by then.
No. Thanks. All right, any other updates, comments? All right, we will move on to item 9, resignations and appointments. A, Councilor Floyd, would you please read this resolution?
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby accepts the resignation of Ellen Connery as a member of the Board of Ethics in accordance with correspondence received on July 2nd, 2024, and effective immediately.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilor Floyd, seconded by Councilor Mankey. Any discussion on this? I assume your hands up from before, Councilor Mankey.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
I would just thank her for her service.
Absolutely. Yes, we do thank her for her service. Very much so. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Councilor Mankey, would you read the next resolution?
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby.
Get your mic.
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby accepts the resignation of John Bashan as an alternate member of the Conservation Commission in accordance with correspondence received July 3rd, 2024, and effective immediately. Second.
Motion by Councilor Mankey, seconded by Councilor Floyd. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Yeah, so then next we're moving on to we're moving on to item C, various appointments. We're gonna do for each commission individually.
Well, we could do these in chunks if we're going.
That's fine. If however you guys want to do the first, how you guys want to do it.
Just said, yeah, we could do that.
Okay, very good. Councilor Mankey, do you want to read the first one or get the resolution? Yeah.
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby makes the following appointments: Conservation and Wetlands Commission, John Bashan. It says alternate, but it should be, it says alternate on my sheet. I didn't get the revised ones.
It should not be alternate.
It should not be alternate, alternate on this one, so it's
Yeah.
Right, now he's a full member.
Now he's full.
Being put on as a full.
So as a full member, 6 Maple Hill Avenue, Party R, immediate to 11/30/2027. The vacancy of Jay Wagner, who's serving de facto. I would guess we call for a vote on that.
Do we want to do that way?
Do it when we have it.
Very good. All right, so we'll have a roll call vote on that one, please.
Oh, we can.
Or
It's a motion and so.
Oh, okay, so Counselor Maggie made the motion. Second by Counselor Floyd. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor of appointing John Bashan?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Next.
Okay, Environmental Quality Commission is Teresa Bassett, public member, 41 Eleanor Place, 41 Eleanor Place. Party D, immediate to 11/30/2025, vacancy from M. Symes.
Motion by Counselor Page. Second by Counselor Mankey. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor?
Economic Development is Jonathan Galligan, alternate 4 Cowell Court. Party D, immediate 11/30/2026, vacancy of J. Nagel.
And Teresa Avey, member, 71 Commonwealth Avenue, Party R, immediate 11/30/2027. Replaces herself, she's serving de facto.
Motion by Counselor Page.
Second.
Second by Counselor Tiniakis. Any discussion on these? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And for Vehicle Appeals Board, Jonathan Galligan, 4 Cowell Court, Party D, term immediate to 11/30/2025. Replaces vacancy, resignation D. O'Laughlin.
Joseph Trombetta, member, 29 Cornish Avenue, Party R, immediate to 11/30/2025. Replaces self, he's serving as de facto.
Motion by Counselor Page, seconded by Counselor Floyd. Any discussion on these? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Parks and Rec Board, and I would call for a roll call vote on this. Mike Camello, 126 Willard Avenue, Party R, immediate to 11/30/2027. Replaces N. Payne, who's serving de facto.
We have a motion by Counselor Mankey. We have a second. Second by Counselor Bedrejko. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
No. The motion fails, 3 yes, 6 no. All right, the next one, Tim.
Sure. Library Board, Kelly DeHaas. A member, 45 Lincoln Road, Party R, immediate to 11/30/2025. The vacancy of E. Livingston.
Second.
All right, motion by Counselor Mankey, second by Counselor Nagel. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Standing Insurance Committee, Jason Hip, alternate. 54 Woodmere Road, Party R, immediate to 11/30/2025, and places a vacancy.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Mankey, second by Counselor Gonzalez. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And the last one.
Resolved that the Newington Town Council, in accordance with the Newington.
Oh, wait, no, we have one more here. Yep, on the.
Sorry, did I miss one?
Yeah.
No, it's okay, we can skip it.
You don't want to do those two? Do you want to do those? Or?
Yeah. I don't want to, but I will.
Okay, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I missed that. I apologize. I'm on copy here. I didn't see the.
Town Pool Project Building Committee, Tim Mankey, 65 Rosewood Drive, Party R, NEC term. John Donahue, public member, 28 Maple Hill Avenue, Party R, inception to project completion.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Mankey, second by Deputy Mayor Rada. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. So we will move on now to item 9D, constable appointment. And actually have a Counselor Tiniakis, you read the resolution?
Resolved that the Newington Town Council, in accordance with the Newington Town Charter, Chapter C 204, vacancies in elected offices, hereby approves the appointment to the office of Constable Teresa Bassett, 41 Eleanor Place, Party D, term immediate till 11/11/2025, replaces vacancy of Frederick H. Callahan.
Motion by Counselor Tiniakis, second by Counselor Gonzalez. Any discussion on this? Counselor Mankey.
I just would point out, this is a little different from a regular appointment to a commission or board. This is appointment to someone who is an elected official, elected, you only need one vote, I guess, but nevertheless elected, through the election process. So it's a little bit different than a appointment to a board or commission. And again, it's replacing Fred Callahan, who unfortunately has passed away. Tough shoes to fill.
Big shoes to fill, very much so. Counselor Page.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, Counselor Mankey. I just wanted to recognize Mr. Callahan again. Gave so much to this town and as a leader, as a business owner, and we will forever be indebted, and we thank him very much and his family. So thank you.
All right. Any other discussion on this? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to agenda item 10, minutes of previous meetings. A bunch in there. Anybody have any issues or anything like that we need to address? Counselor Nagel, you're up.
Make sure you can hear me.
Very good.
There are a number of them. I've looked them over. I have no problem with sentences being incomplete, but there are some things that are a change of a word or whatever can make a big difference. And for the typos, misprints, then I know that's kind of job being done that possibly can be done. May 28th, page 9, line 7. They did not a go job, but a good job. On page 9, bullet 5, the word Nobel is used. It should be noble, once we're giving out a prize. Page 10, the last bullet on that page should say any pitfall. And noticed that on May 28th, it says that we had gotten Wallace appointments, and we've done another May too. So we did it twice, just to point that out. Also on May 28th, page 15, bullet 3, line 4, not included in the information that I gave, was that the fire department, the burn drill, we had a bipartisan trip on a ladder truck platform. It sounds like that we had a trip on a truck for the library, and that first thing wasn't put in there. The next bullet point 4 on that same page, it's minority party, not minority or whatever it was, just to clarify. Nothing that's earth shaking, but important and change what's going on. I don't, there aren't any other errors there or misprints or whatever. And I can hand this over in my sheet if that would be helpful to our recorder. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Nagel. Any other issues or concerns with the minutes? Entertain a motion to approve the minutes with Councilor Nagel's edits.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilor Plord, second by Councilor Mankey. Any discussion on this any further? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 11, consideration of new business. Item A, Mason job description update. Any update on that? Pretty self-explanatory.
Sure, this is just, again, from time to time, we go through job descriptions and they're outdated. We take the opportunity to ask you to please consider updating them to the current language or the current duties. In this case, we came from this Mason job description that is the current position. And it's typewritten, so clearly it's outdated. We're just gonna ask you, no action tonight, just to take a look. Heather worked with the superintendent of highway and they put together the job description for the current position.
Any questions from counselors on this? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item 11B, discussion Newington Junction signs. And so Paige, you want to introduce it or? Sure. There you go.
Thanks, Mayor. We have been talking about the Newington Junction signage. There's been efforts by previous mayor and previous majority council to secure a grant to do some signage and other important recognition and demarcation and beautification of that beautiful area and historic area. From going back many, many years, we value it as a precious space, and we know that there was some monies from the state recently to help replenish our signage budget. So in that context, I was just interested in, as we discussed in agenda setting, and opening the discussion as to whether or not it's appropriate to use any of that money to further the efforts to have historic signage in that area. And if not, fine, but I'd like to explore it and see if there's something else we can be doing as a council to empower the staff to revisit the granting as well, to see if we can do what we can to make a more robust historic district. So that's why I brought it up.
We have our town planner who's a little bit better versed on this topic. He's been sitting patiently if you have any questions for him.
Sorry to get you out.
Counselor Mankey, Deb, if you want to use notes.
Maybe just look over, but how much was the grant for? What you applied for?
I've got to double check that number. Maybe we have an answer from the man.
So it should be, it was already off mute and all set. Yep, it looks like it's off mute. So to answer the question about the grant, so there really was two grants. So the grant that the town did get was the $10,000 SHARP grant. So that produced that report by Sawdust and Strata that recommended the signage. So that grant was successful and was completed. The one grant we did not get was the next phase of it, which is the implementation grant from the Connecticut Humanities. That we were seeking a $70,000 grant. So on top of that grant, what we're really looking at, the signage itself, you're really looking at about $19,000 for the physical signage. However, the grant we had, the $10,000 grant that we did kind of give some ideas about what the signs could be, but they are not designed out yet. So they need a graphic designer, they need the historians to be able to go through it again and actually create what these panels would be. And through a committee that would look at that, again, through the Historical Society. So that's really what we're looking at. It's the second phase grant of an implementation grant that we did not get. I can tell you the project, what the proposal is for 5 signs, 2 signs at Newington Junction. One of those signs would be primarily the history of Newington, kind of how it transferred from, being farming, agricultural to where it is now. And then the second sign would delve more into, or at least it's proposed more into transportation. As it was noted during one of the public comments about kind of the streetcars and the railroad, that was a major change for Newington Junction and change for Newington as a whole. So that's how those 2 signs would be. And then looking at a potential sign at 2 Chapman Street. So signage that could introduce the firehouse, its placement, and the early history of first responders in Newington. It could also work with the Newington Fire Department and Museum in the original Firehouse 1, highlight that. Another sign at 294 Willard. That's the site of the 1850 one-room schoolhouse. That's now a association. And that would be an education theme sign to show the growth of the public school system and the adaptation that Newington had to do to the rapid change of population as Newington increased. And then a sign at 255 West Hill Road. That property is not historic itself, but the sign could be oriented towards the historic streetscape across the road and discuss the development of the area since the colonial period to where we are today. So it's really about highlighting that area, getting some interest in that area from the town, some civic pride, but also this is the ability to work it through the K-3 education program as well, and to incorporate this into the curriculum. So that was kind of the overall plan for it. But yeah, where we are right now is we need to look at that because we weren't successful with that application. So we need to revisit that with the humanities, see, where we were lacking on it. I know this was happening at the time for the transition from the last town planner. And I think this process involves a lot of public participation and involves a lot of volunteerism. For this type of grant, what you have is actually, it's a 50-50 match. Of the 50% match, that is the town side of it. If you are looking for over $25,000 from them, which we would be, we're looking for 70,000 total, 35 from them and 35 in kind and donations. Half of that 35 has to be non-town funds. So it has to be through donations. It has to be through in-kind donations and time. So that's kind of where we're looking at the process of that. I have spoken with our grant administrator, our assistant, who is working with us on that. And she is interested in reviving this project if that's where the council would like us to go with it. But there is some coalition building that will have to happen. Again, Historic Society working with CCSU and working across the board with interested parties, because it does need a lot of volunteerism and a lot of help to bring it across the finish line.
Yeah, I think that's, I like the idea of signs, and especially in that seems like a cluster of historical buildings, or certainly it's historical importance. I like the idea of teaching. I don't think we spend enough time teaching about ourselves. And this is a vibrant community. It's gone through a lot of changes, and we don't, my sense is we just kind of gloss over that. We move from, Revolutionary War to the Civil War, and we just keep right on going. We don't study our own self and where these houses, where these roads, where these names came from. I think that would be important. I'm not sure what action you want us to take, other than I would suggest we reapply for the grant as soon as possible, and maybe this time we can beef it up a little bit to get whatever we need to get the grant accomplished. I think it's important to celebrate ourselves sometimes, and not only in Newington Junction, but there are other places around town that I think we sort of drive by and we don't stop, and we don't notice the things that made us what we are. So I think those things are important. Thanks, Barry, your charge.
Thank you, Councilor Mackey.
Did the town manager want to respond?
Yeah, you had your hand up about the
I
grant.
lost my laptop, so I apologize for the. You and Jim potentially reapplying for the grant. Because under the laptop, I think our grant writer Sonia may be on meeting. She might be promoted to a panelist if she's still here. Check and see if she's under the.
Yep, I see her. You can promote to panelists.
Yep. And if you wouldn't mind, what I'd like to add too is for part of this process too, really the signage reviewed as 1A. That's the start of it. The 1B part of it, which actually I see is really the signage brings attention. It celebrates our history. But on top of that too, it's that pride in the area, and then looking at opportunities to look to get funding for the rehabilitation of the historic houses. Now, this funding, there are different opportunities for it. I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen for property owners and for us to assist understand what's the difference between state registration, national registration, and the difference between those and what restrictions they put. Like national registration, for example, the Connecticut Environmental Protection Act, if you're nationally registered, someone could come in as an intervener for a unnecessary demolition. So that does frighten some people on their property to say, okay, now there's a restriction. Now, it's not a historic district where it would be specific zoning regulations that say what you can't do, color, roof shingles. We're not looking to get into that level of detail, especially at this point. But it's to identify it as a historic loop. And that way they even more so can apply, be state registered, and then go for those funding to rehabilitation of the house. Because there is funding available for properties that are listed. The area itself is listed. It's been listed think if I remember the date, since 1986. It has been listed as a historic district in the area with 4 different sub-districts. But again, that's one district with contributing buildings. The buildings themselves aren't specifically listed and haven't been brought to that next level. So that could be the step. But for me, the important part is, yes, this celebrates our history, but it also brings attention to the area and potentially could open up funding opportunities for people to rehab these houses. Because without that intact district, you have some of it. And if we could bring it back a little more to what it was, and at least be able to see those echoes of the past and be able to see that history along with the informative signage and the walking tour and the QR, it brings something a little bit together. So that's really, I think, the goal of this project is not only to celebrate it, but to help out the homeowners in the area and get interest in those houses.
Thanks, Paul. Councilor Draco.
Do you know why, is there any inkling as to why we didn't get the grant?
So Sonia is available. I don't know if you, if I could hand that over to her. That would be
Yes,
okay.
so we didn't really pursue a debrief, but I.
Hi, Sonia, you're up. If you hear us, you're a panelist.
Can you hear me okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's delayed. Okay, so to answer the question, why wasn't it awarded? We didn't have a debrief. We submitted it during a time of transition with the town of Newington. We had an outgoing town planner, and at the time there was a lot of transition with staff. So I did not request a debrief because I felt that it wouldn't it would have less meaning until people had time to get their legs underneath them. I can certainly request that now. I can take an educated guess, though, that the community support was lacking. There probably wasn't enough engagement town-wide from all different sources, and probably didn't have a long enough runway to build up that kind of interest in Connecticut Humanities Mind. I'd be happy to do a debrief and get some more explanation. The planning grants are relatively easier to get. The implementation grants are tougher. November 1st is the next time we can apply, and May 1st is the next time after that for the next round of implementation grants. I'd be happy. I think this project has a lot of merit. I think it's very competitive with some good planning and community participation elevated. It will get its legs wrapped around it, and you can get its arms wrapped around it, and will get funded. And there's also other funding that we could seek for this project, not limited, just national opportunities, museum opportunities. There's other funds available that would support this endeavor as well.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Sonia. I think it's really important for us to get that debriefing because, if we apply again and get, rejected again, I mean, 3 strikes are out probably. But in any event, it just makes a stronger case. And what about, how is the grant going, or were you going to try and get connectivity from the terminus of the hiking trail to Trout Brook? Is that coming along?
Yes, so we're working on getting the RFP finalized together on that one. And it has been looking at holistically what is happening around the Newington Junction area and trying to work together with that. Also with that grant, I've been in contact with West Hartford, and they were seeking on this round. I'm not sure whether they got it. I don't believe they did. I don't think they've announced this last round, but they were looking at an additional companion project that would have done more around the Trout Brook Trail and connect with the project that we were proposing to. Because that project does contain a good amount of it that's within West Hartford, but it's kind of inevitably someone has to take the initiative and look for the connection of those two. And it does benefit, since the trail does end in Newington, to connect it. And that was kind of that whole process. But since West Hartford was looking at an opportunity too, that I've been trying to work with them and seeing what they would get, that we could get a larger project out of it. I still absolutely do plan on following through with that grant and getting that done.
I guess what, you know, what I'm saying is that this signage project would really contribute to, because there will be more traffic, more bike traffic, or walking, jogging. And having it's not gonna be a big destination, but it would be like a destination. So in conjunction with extending the trail, and getting the signage, I think it's very important. And also, what we don't know, what many people in this community don't know, is that you alluded to the fact that the area, there's actually 3 areas that are designated on the National Historic Register. And we don't even have signage for that. You know, people going through town, many people I talk to, really, you know? So we've done our town a disservice, and certainly in trying to recognize at least the history we have. These additional signs are fine, but I mean, we don't even have recognition. You're now entering a historic district or something. So I say, you know, full speed ahead, whatever you can do. Certainly in favor.
I see Sonia has her hand up again, or there you go. Sonia, there you go.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I think it just got covered by the counselor's remarks that this is the town right now is at a pivotal moment where you are working in concert with a lot of development at once that is more favorable now than it was a couple years ago when we put this grant together, including the trailhead. It is going to trail a walk. It's people walking in on the trails will have a place to come to. It's like it'll be its own trailhead and a recognizable place to stop along the pathway. Between that, the housing development that has been put into place, there are a lot more things are in favor of this kind of funding for these kind of projects that are recognize the historic value of and the assets around town. And it is a source of pride that shows the town is prideful in its appearance, and it has repercussions along the lines of helping homeowners recognize the value, and also businesses understand that the town is recognizing that it wants to be prideful and make things attractive and memorable for anybody who comes and does business in the town.
Thank you, Sonia. Council Page.
Yeah, just one more comment and then I'll defer is, and I know y'all are busy, and people who own these homes, these beautiful historic homes in Newington Junction and elsewhere are busy with their lives. So what I'm proposing would be completely voluntary on behalf of any of the homeowners, but have those folks been solicited for their participation in the grant process and sort of to maybe create more excitement or enthusiasm among anyone who would want to volunteer, who owns one of those respective homes, to then participate not only in this process, but maybe to have a conversation about having to start with there be, like I think, there is done in some of the other historic homes, like a celebration, you know, a half a Saturday or something where anyone who wants to participate could come out of their front lawn, maybe open their living room. I don't know if I'd want to open my living room. So I respect that, but some might be super proud of their space. And even if it was 2 or 3 folks who wanted to have an event like that, in addition to what we're talking about with signage, that might be in the service of greater success with the next application. Just a thought. So.
And that's it. Thank you. I appreciate that thought. And that is actually a really good thought to look forward and do that. And since right now we're really going to be looking at this application again with fresh eyes and looking at how we can strengthen it. And that would be a good way to strengthen it. It will need a lot of working with those homeowners, because again, to assuage any fears too on that one, because you're going to have people walking by your house. That's the ultimate thing is, you know, there's an opportunity to, there's actually a lot of recommendations in the report that was generated through that SHARP grant, above and beyond just the signage. Really, it looks at Newington Junction as really the first step as starting to celebrate our historic resources. It's a compact area. It can be done with comparatively relatively less funds than doing a very large district. And it's a good place to showcase it. But again, this could be replicated elsewhere. but is that understanding? I know opening up the houses is interesting too. You do have, garden tours are potentially a little more popular, but you do have towns out there, when visiting Portsmouth and other places like that, where there's Sundays where they just open up places and people go and visit and people go and look. So that could be an opportunity for us in the future, especially with any assistance, or at least, walking around the grounds, anything assistance that these homeowners get. Whether it is specifically through all these programs that are out there with state historic protection, Connecticut Humanities, or other programs that we could assist with the funding, at least direct them in the right direction to go, that they can improve these properties and they would be, gems.
Councilor Floyd.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. And thank you for being here. Just a couple of quick questions for you, just to clarify some of what you said. So it was $70,000 was the implementation grant. And was it 19,000 of that was intended for design, or what was the portion of that was intended for design?
So I did a rough back of the envelope. So the signage itself, based on what was submitted, is about $19,000 for the panel fabrication, construction, and the wayfinding signage. The designer would be about $12,500 to design the materials. But then on top of it, there's the sawdust and strata, the people who work for them, because they really have to develop out the historic material and get it vetted and get it right. Part of this process is also looking at in conjunction to look at a discovery period. That was part of it too, of talking to people from the community, in cooperation with residents, library, historical society, kind of discovery period where locals and descendants, past homeowners could share stories, documents, pictures that could add a little more richness to the history of whatever is produced. So it's kind of multifaceted, and yes, when you look at the signs themselves, but the content to generate that is just as much or more so than the actual signs.
Thank you for that. So just with that in mind, and while I have every faith and hope that we'll get, in the process of reapplying these funds, I know that we also received from the state of Connecticut just recently $45,000 back for signage construction for the town of Newington, town signage construction. I don't know, and I would defer to those who would know better than I would what limitations there may be in terms of using those funds. But could that be a potential offset to at least some of the preliminary work, the design, the as you said, the kind of research period and so on? Could that create a potential offset and potentially even lower the amount that we have to apply in grant funds for?
So I would defer to the town manager and finance director on how they would allocate it. The way, and this is off the cuff, that I would look at it, for the materials themselves, it could potentially be an offset in, say, if the town needed to provide that part of that match, the 50% match. Maybe that's where the materials come from, if that could be considered another source. Again, we still have to provide 25% of the total from outside sources. And again, those could be organizations, donations, but that's where I would see that potentially being, doing the research and coming up with that might be a little out of skew with what the state actually, appropriated and gave the funds for, but potentially for the materials themselves, that could be a discussion, but I would defer to the town manager for that.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Having lived up in Willimantic for many years, we had a Victorian Home Association. Someone else is shaking their head, yes. And we had Victorian Home Days, and it was an entire weekend where people did open their homes, and there were buggy rides and concerts and all kinds of things going on, which they still do. It was kind of curtailed a bit because of COVID, but a good example of what the future might be able to hold. Similar things are done in Wethersfield, as we all know. The other thing I wanted to just mention briefly is, first of all, I'd like to catch up with you, or a couple of us, I'm sure, would like to catch up with you, because we've been having kind of more informal meetings starting. They had started with Newington Art League, and it's now blossomed into more of an arts and culture committee that has been meeting quite regularly now. And I want to bring you, Sonia, up to date on that as well, and some opportunities, Councilor Draco, Councilor Plord, sit in on these meetings, Mayor, Twister when he's available, and other people from the community and different entities that we've already talked about. So, this looks like it might be a really nice fit. So to bring you all up to speed on where we are and what hopes there might be for Newington. And we can talk about that offline.
Sounds good.
Keep you in, pardon the pun, keep you in the loop.
Deputy Mayor Otta. Counselor Menke.
Yeah, you were just right to mention that as part of the 150th celebration, there was a tour of the center of town, and some of the historic buildings. Our very own Dave Nagle served as I forget who you were, but you were somebody who, Mr. Kirkham, who went to California to gold mine by wedding ring. They were in as well. Came back. I paid attention.
I'm so sure of the story.
I was almost there. So it was pretty cool. But I think that's something that, and I know at one point there was a tour when I was much younger. There was a tour of Newington Junction. It started in the firehouse and went around those houses. And I learned a lot about those houses. But again, I think signage and some kind of wage for people to do that would be on their own. It would be a great thing, but it wouldn't be a bad thing to just get a group of people together and have a Newington history day, and we would just take a tour. Even is more of a sound. A tour of the old cemetery is kind of cool because you'd see that what's there and who the people are and what the important names are. So I think I would support reapplying for the grant and do what we can for signs. I don't know if the state money would qualify for this. I'm sure the state money has some strings attached to it that would probably preclude us from using all of it for this project. But I think it would be important to reapply.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? I will say that I was a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission when this first came up, and this was easily one of the most interesting things that we looked at in my time in that commission. I'm particularly interested in history, and I think, as Councilor Draco said, I've been full steam ahead on this. I think it would be great. Just as my own editorial comment, I'd like to see more in our schools done to help sort of bolster this and educate our children, because I believe local history is incredibly important at promoting civic education and having people interested in the community. So that's just my soapbox on that. So, but I'm looking forward to seeing this move forward.
Just one thing, I mean, my daughter is a West Hartford teacher in 5th grade. And all 5th grade classes in West Hartford have to go to the old Webster House and they have to tour it. And I was lucky enough to chaperone, I got to chaperone her class. And I decided I didn't want to be a teacher, but I chaperoned her class, and it was interesting that watching those kids who drive by this house probably all the time, actually going in the house and seeing what their history is. And I don't think we do that a good job of that here. And we should, I'm not saying we show, walk doing junk, but we should do a better job of celebrating our history, because our history is us.
Councilor Nagle?
Well, make certain you can hear me. And just to add, and I know you're probably aware that Historical Society is a wealth of knowledge, and it has at various times in its past done things such as, I believe, where the Councilor Menke was talking about different homes. There are a lot of treasures in this town that are not hard to find, but you need signage for the public at large to realize that they are there. I know the Kirkham House that I was at during the 150th anniversary, people didn't know it was there until it was pointed out. There was a sign branded, not like the kind you're talking about, too little to see that it was right in the middle of things. So this is a good start and a good development. I'm sure a loop trail that goes all around the town, connecting one district to another, could probably be put together to in the future to enlarge in this great beginning that you're starting to focus on.
Thank you, Councilor Nagle. Chairman.
Just to elaborate upon the part about the education and that component. part of the $70,000 grant funding that was not awarded did include funding for an educational component with this, conjunction with the school to bring in expert speakers and have programming related to Newington specific history. So when we go ahead and reapply for that grant, we'll make sure, of course, to include that as well.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions on that?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I'm sorry to keep you.
No problem.
So we're moving right along.
I probably would have been listening home on it anyway. I've heard that from way too many people.
All right, so we'll move on to agenda item 11C, discussion Newington train station, Cedar Street. Council Page, you want to take it
Sure,
over?
thanks, Mayor. As I mean, I'm sick of hearing myself talk about this. I've been talking about this since I got elected. I gave a more thorough presentation in July of 22 on this with many links which are still active. I've checked prior to tonight, including the CROG study that was done in 2019. There have been updated studies, white papers published about the economic, environmental, and social benefits of not just trains, but of the, as has been referenced a few times tonight, transit-oriented development. We're in an affordable housing crisis in this state and throughout the country. TOD, when done right, can create more walkable communities. It can create opportunities for people to afford a home, which they can't. Now we're short about 100,000 homes in Connecticut, and various communities are striving to address that issue and participate in solving the problem. We have a crisis with our environment and with climate change, and I won't get into all that. We're all aware of it as we go through tornado warnings and so forth. There are legitimate concerns about the impact, as has been referenced by some of the speakers, about a train stop on Cedar Street as it would affect traffic flow on a very overwhelmed Cedar Street. I drive that too, back and forth to my job at Central, and it is crowded. Everybody knows that. So we don't want to have negative unintended consequences there. I believe that we have, where there's a will, there's a way, and we are bright enough and capable enough to solve that problem as we look to take part in mass transit and trains that with communities such as Greenwich all the way to New London, and from Enfield now all the way down to New Haven. Beautiful, lovely, wonderful communities who have not only endured and tolerated a train stop, but have benefited greatly for all the reasons stated previously. And if you want to dig into that literature, you'll see that it has been a boon for economic development and all those other reasons. I think it will take butts out of the automobiles and put butts in the train. And I think it will be good for all of us. And I know people say, well, we got to think about Newington first. And I am elected to think about Newington first. I also have a moral responsibility to think of my greater Newington area and Connecticut and the United States and the world. And I think that this is thinking globally and acting locally and doing what we can to play a part in solving really, really existential issues in our country. You know, it sounds dramatic, but look at what's happening to our world. So I would ask that we re-engage in this conversation. And I am very excited about declaring clearly and loudly to our state partners and our federal partners that Cedar Street location unequivocally is where we need to have a train stop and take part in mass transit as scores of other communities are in Connecticut. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from councilors on this? Council Plug.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo some of what Councilor Page said. You know, this has obviously been a discussion that has come before this council before, and that is not even a fraction of the amount of time that it has been a discussion in our community. And so I think a lot of the concerns that folks raise, as you said, Councilor Page, are very legitimate, you know, particularly as it relates to that Cedar Street corridor, which is a nightmare in our town. It's a highway that goes right through our the town's most precious areas, I think. I know that we have been working through the grant that we received from our federal partners to study that corridor, which includes some work on implementation as well. Once that study is complete, I'm looking forward to getting an update on how that process has been so far, how that money is being utilized, because again, God knows we need some TLC on that corridor. With that being said, I think a lot of the discussion in our community has been around two focal points. It's been around Newington Junction, and it's been around Cedar Street. There have been numerous studies done with state partners, with outside consultants, with DOT, with CROG, as was referenced here in the town of Newington. Numerous eyes, numerous changes in elected leadership that have looked at those two locations. And it is clear, I think, that the state of Connecticut, which is funding this project along with federal dollars to a large extent, are not interested in the Newington Junction location. I think it's important to just say that, because I think the discussion at this point is, are we going to have a train station or are we not going to have a train station? And that's a very legitimate policy discussion to have. But this discussion around between Cedar Street and between Newington Junction, I think has been talked about extensively. And I think it's clear, for better or worse, based on your perspective, that Newington Junction location is not being considered. And so I hope we can continue this discussion based on those merits. For my part, I'm strongly in favor of a train station. Not only does it, I think, benefit all the important issues and our responsibility here that Councilor Page referenced, but just in terms of our residents, which we have a responsibility for, our young people are driving significantly less than they ever have in the past. They get their licenses much later in life. I was one of those who got mine a bit later than my parents maybe would have liked. A lot of our seniors that don't have reliable access to transportation or aren't able to utilize a motor vehicle benefit from close proximity to mass transit and to walkable areas that pop up around mass transit. There are a litany of reasons why I think not only the Cedar Street location, but just transit in general in our community are beneficial for our residents. So I hope we can have that discussion based on that dichotomy here. Do we want a train station or do we not? That's a respectful dialogue that we can have. Certainly my perspective is that should we have a train station, that it should be at the Cedar Street location, given that there is little interest in moving it elsewhere. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Any other comments or questions on this? I'll just add that, I concur with what Councilor Page and Councilor Porter said in relation to this location at Cedar Street, particularly on the back of our discussion about the historical district. I think it wouldn't make sense to have a TOD district in a historical district. I think it's good to keep the two separate and preserve a historic district and focus the train station on the Cedar Street. All right. Moving right along then to 11D, consideration of cancellation of upcoming Newington Town Council meeting. Anybody have any thoughts on that at this point? Well, there's two choices. There's August 13th or August 27th. Councilor Mankey, go right ahead.
It's not unusual. This is in the 9 years I've sat in the council, this is in a regular occurrence. We certainly all work more than we get paid. We sit here and we all have vacations and we all have time with our family schedules. So a time off day, a meeting off would not be a bad thing. Keep in mind that we don't have to decide the date today. We can make that decision closer to date. I'll be on vacation first to the 13th, but that's my call. But I think it's a standard practice we do all the time. We always can call a special meeting. We always have that ability to call a special meeting. But I think it's kind of a placeholder to consider that and we did our next.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments from councilors on this? Yeah, I agree with Councilor Mankey on that too as well. All right, we'll move right along to item 12, written oral communications from the town manager or other town agencies.
Sure, I'll start with a personnel update. as DJ mentioned earlier this evening, the part-time per diem fire inspector position is posted. So hopefully we'll get some qualified applicants and can proceed with that. We have given an offer to the assessment tech position to a successful candidate, a conditional offer, and should they accept, we expect they will start by the end of this month. So that's good news, filling in another vacancy. We finally have some applications after a renewed push for applicants for the assistant building official position, which has been vacant for years now. And we have a couple of qualified applications, so we will go ahead and proceed with scheduling interviews as quickly as possible. Thank you for approving the job description for the clerical position between the town manager's office and the finance department. As I mentioned, that is currently a budgeted position. It's currently funded, so we can go ahead and start recruiting for that position now. And then everything else is basically status quo, moving along with the police department and other open positions. The canopy project, you received an email earlier today. If you notice, the human services entrance is blocked off and the parking spots are blocked off. That is the beginning of a 3-month project to install canopies similar to the east entrance right next to human services, like the overhangs with the columns and the concrete overhang. That project just began this week. It again is approximately a 3-month project. It was approved by the council and ARPA funded going into the 2023 fiscal year. So essentially the human services entrance will remain closed for a good portion of that project due to the fact that they need to mill the sidewalk and install the columns and do all that work, the painting and install the electrical and the canopy. So we're working closely with the fire marshal to make sure that there's egress and that we're following all of those requirements appropriately. Human Services Department did have to move for a couple of days just because of that egress. That exit was completely unusable today and tomorrow, possibly Thursday. So Human Services is temporarily in a conference room, but that's very temporary. We have signage. We have assigned specific parking spots for Human Services clients to use during this. You just to guide everybody into the right place. There's also a canopy being installed on one of the Parks and Recreation entrances. That is a little bit less of a issue because they have various entrances. You can just block that one off until they can get some scaffolding up there to allow people to enter and exit. So again, about a 3-month project, we'll keep you posted on it, but that's the disruption that you see up by the east entrance. We are set to begin the final phase of the senior center window project, which is the glass blocks that you see along the lower line on the building. They're like kind of like skylights that are like right below the ceiling. And they're along one whole hallway where the information and referral center is. And then so like gosh, I can't think of it. The arts and crafts room where the garden does their indoor work and several program rooms, the wood shop down at the end. This requires some mediation, some environmental remediation because of the caulk around the existing glass blocks. That's very highly regulated by the state, that process and how it's done. So in order to accommodate and accomplish that, we're going to have to close off 3 rooms at a time for a couple of weeks per room to perform that remediation because they have to be completely sealed off. And again, just to do that all according to the proper methods and standards. And so we are working closely with facilities to move things around like we need to. So our social worker and our benefits coordinator are not going to be able to access their offices for a couple of weeks. So we're moving their file cabinets and they're going to be working in the nurse's office. So they still have a private place to meet with clients, so on and so forth. And we'll just move other programs as we can. Once the remediation is done, they can open up those rooms again and we just need to block them off temporarily while they remove the actual glass blocks and install the new frosted panels. So that's moving along well. Look forward to that being done. I just want to thank the town clerk, James Krasinski, for filling in for Scott tonight, who has a well-deserved night off, and I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you so much for all your efforts. And we do have folks from my team here too, or not Scott because he's off. So they're working on that. And I think we have the vendor who maintains the hardware is going to be here and hopefully get this fixed before the TV meeting tomorrow night. Earlier in the evening, Rose Lyons asked about the staff assigned to the pool committee. The answer to that question is at this time, it is the Parks and Rec Director, Bill DeMayo, who was assigned to staff that committee. And he will be working with and kind of conferring with the Director of Administrative Services, Lauren Rhines. on that, but Bill is going to be the person at the meetings. The reason for that is simple. It's often the case that the Director of Administrative Services is the person that staffs project building committees. However, Lauren is currently staffing 3 other project building committees, and it's just not logistically possible for her to attend these meetings at the same time. So Bill is the person who is facilitating the meetings with other staff as I appoint to assist with the project. It is still the committee's purview to make the policy suggestions to the council, and we'll continue to work on that. And that's about it.
Councilor Floyd, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, Jamie, just wanted to ask, and thank you for your report. The entrance to Human Services, that typical entrance you think will be open again by the end of this week? Or
no, it will be closed for a good
duration
portion of the project. It's the project is 3 months, but that includes like punch list and like, some time built in for delays. So I'm not sure exactly how long it'll be closed. It's not accessible at all right now because of whatever structural work they're doing that makes it unsafe for people to pass in and out of that entrance. So once that work is done by tomorrow or Thursday, the entrance will be an emergency exit only. And people will still need to use the east entrance right next to it to go in and out. Like so there's plenty of signage. You can walk up there. And so they can use it to exit if they need to.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Councilor, any other questions or comments for Town Manager? All right, seeing none, move on to item 13, Council Liaison and Committee Reports. Councilor Rodrigo.
Okay, Councilor AJ and I,
Unmute if you don't mind, sorry. Sorry.
Councilor AJ Tiniakis and I attended the Economic Development Committee. And a couple of interesting things. They're trying to get a small business Saturday going where they're going to have a passport where people can go into different businesses, hopefully businesses that they've never been into, get it stamped, and then maybe they try and get some prizes for the number of businesses you use or whatever. Secondly, I think everybody knows that there's a plan to be an indoor trampoline center. Sky Zone is the company that's going to be the corporate sponsor or the corporation that's going to be doing this. And apparently the inside is going to be an 8-month renovation. So it's not going to be done in summer, but certainly hopefully by the beginning of next year. The EDC is also trying to get a business questionnaire. They're just kind of in the planning stages of surveying all business and sizes. What do they need from the town? What's been difficult for them? Whatever. It hasn't really been finalized that much, but they do plan to get something out there. Fourth is the former TGIF restaurant. There's a new restaurant going in, and AJ, do you remember what the okay, so that will add another flavor to our town offerings. And then something I thought was really interesting. Apparently the Hartford Hospital property has been taken off the market until the downtown study has been completed. That's what right, AJ? Yeah. At consultants, their consultant, I guess the RFP or whatever has gone out for the consultant. But the property's been taken off the market because that's going to be included as part of what the study is going to be. It's going to include the Hartford Hospital, the Key, Best Market, and Market Square, as well as the town center. And I know you're very good at keeping notes. Anything I forgot?
No.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Floyd.
Thank you. Okay, good. I just wanted to speak to first, I think it's Mongolian Grill. I think it's going to be hot pot, which is great. I've never had it before. I've heard it's very good, so that will be wonderful. Wanted to speak to the Permanent Municipal Building Commission Ordinance Review Subcommittee. Say that 3 times fast. We met just this past week, myself, Deputy Mayor Rada, and Councilor Nagel, and had a robust, collaborative discussion around a whole host of potential changes to the ordinance for the Permanent Municipal Building Commission. I thought it was a very productive discussion. I know we have some homework that we ourselves as individual members continue to look at and working together with Lauren Rhines, our staff liaison, to put some of that on paper. I expect those discussions to continue to be productive. I want to note that I think what we all came to a consensus on is that not only is this process important, but that we have every intention to suggest edits to the council for that ordinance that will strengthen it and not, weaken it and not eliminate it either. That was a bipartisan consensus. So again, feel really good about the productive conversations that we're going to continue to have. Yes.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other updates from those committees? All right, seeing none, we will move on back to public participation. In general, if you're in the room and like to participate in public participation, please come up to the desk and state your name and address for the record. If you're over Zoom, please use the raise hand function. You have 4 minutes to speak. Oops, 1 second. She's going to get you the document on the left hand.
Diane Kataya, 95 Sterling Drive. So I want to thank the council for approving the LGBTQ and what is the other? IA. In Canada, you see it as TS, two-spirit. So, this is so important for our community. There's a difference between a hate crime and the statistics that they were saying that Newington doesn't have for hate crimes versus being welcome and included. Case in point, when my wife and I, we got married, but we were buying property and getting married in Newington. Went to town offices. The forms to complete for the marriage license didn't have a place that didn't include a Mr. I mean, just these simple little things that tell you you're welcome or not. So I filled out 2 separate forms, one for each of us. And brought it to the town clerk's office and brought it to her attention. And it was, she got a very good laugh out of it and said, something needs to be changed here. So, I mean, this was just 9 years ago. It wasn't like this was ancient history. So that just gives an example of being truly welcomed versus, this hate crime, which I'm not saying it's hate crime. And I wanted to also correct something that was stated earlier about transgender people in the grooming. I work with transgender people. My brother's transgender. I mean, going back 40 years. So it's not new, this transgender thing. I do not know a single transgender person who is a groomer whatsoever. And also about the teenage mutilation. I work with transgender population and can tell you that we do not have teenagers in Connecticut being mutilated. If a teenager and the parent approve, they can have gender affirming surgeries. I very, 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 very rarely, in fact, I think I can only think of one person that had any sort of surgery before they turned 18. So they're making the choices on their own if they're choosing to have gender affirming surgeries. So I just wanted to correct some of those things. And I do, like I said, I really appreciate you taking action on it. Being inclusive versus just being, yes, you're there, we're not going to hate on you. There's a difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, I'm breaking my vow of being on the wrong side of the page. John Donahue, 28 Maple Ave. Just a technical thing, and it's gonna be a conspiracy thing. But when you took the vote, the LGBTQI thing, the sound was up. Nobody heard the vote. So, just to let you know that it's just, just the way the meeting's going, how it's operating, but it just seemed to cut out at a weird time. All right, so nobody heard the vote. I know what the vote was, but so just if you hear things, that's what happened. The sound just cut out. So I don't think you have to retake the vote, but just so you're aware. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. How do you spell your last name?
Good evening, Beth Delgino, 327 Walsh Avenue. Excuse me, I might be a little scattered. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I came down actually because I was interested in the train station discussion. I was hoping it was going to be a little more formal, maybe some more information from the state. So hopefully as that information becomes available in terms of how things are going to move forward, I'll stay tuned for that. I was going to ask if you at a future meeting could possibly provide an update on the Alumni Road project that was in the works, or I thought approved prior to November. Was supposed to start to do a right in and right turn out only with an island in the middle and that kind of thing. So I'm just curious where that project stands. I also was a bit surprised to hear some no votes on an appointment this evening for former Councilor Mike Camillo on the Parks and Recreations Board. Councilor Camillo, or former Councilor Camillo, has really supported Parks and Rec over the years, both financially and personally, in terms of fighting for certain causes and being an advocate. So I was a bit concerned I was more concerned that no reason was given. I do serve on the Newington Republican Town Committee's nominating committee. And so his name was brought forward through the proper channels through what is supposed to happen to bring names forward in nomination. So I would love it if someone could give me some feedback offline on what the problem was, so that moving forward, the committee that makes these nominations will know if there was an issue. I did look back and, I know Mayor Trister and Councilor Page made comments at the first couple of meetings that the intent was not to challenge nominations. So I think it's fair for me to ask that question. I also wanted to just ask, as I was listening to the discussion on the LGBTQIA plus committee, I guess, first of all, what I heard was that we're trying to avoid political party affiliation on that committee, and I understand the intent of that, but I believe there's a Connecticut General Statute 9-167A that indicates there needs to be minority representation or an accounting of a minimum number of, or I guess it's really more about not exceeding a maximum number from one political party as I read it. So I would just ask that you review that and just see if we're in compliance or not compliance on what you passed this evening. And if not, if we can look at changing that in terms of the makeup of that committee. And I wanted to say to sorry, I'm just calling you Deputy Mayor. I apologize. Councilor Bedrejko. I apologize, Deputy Mayor Rada, for that. Councilor Bedrejko, I agreed with your comments on the fact that we have a Human Rights Commission, and it would have been very easy to forward these types of concerns through that commission. It seems like that was their charge, or should have been their charge, to recognize all of the groups. I do understand why some folks want a separate committee for this, but it could have been handled through there. So I just wanted to thank you for bringing that up. I hadn't thought of that, and that was an opinion that I heard tonight that I thought was very valid. So thank you for that. And then I heard Ms. Lyons asked about the staff liaison at Treveth and mentioned that Bill DeMayo is a staff member assigned to the pool committee. And I would just say that in reviewing the permanent building project committee, take a look at that, because I think it is an issue when the person who's kind of leading the charge with the committee is the one who has the most vested interest in the project. That's an issue that we were trying to avoid in establishing that permanent project building committee, so that it can be a more neutral look at projects and make sure that we're looking at it in in a more neutral way. So I would just caution you and ask that you look at that and who leads that as a staff liaison. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elita Haas, 45 Lincoln Road. I just want to say that I'm a little disappointed that I heard a lot of comments tonight about continuing conversations and holding these conversations, but then it came out that you didn't even conversate with the Republican members of your council for this resolution. So if you were really truly open to these conversations, making sure that the resolution was going to work for all and make sure that people could support it more openly or more fully, that I would have thought at a minimum, conversations with the other town councilors would have happened, even if they didn't happen outside of your group with the public. That's all.
Thank you.
Oh, again, Tony Mealy, 124 Apple Hill. This, Council Pedranko, thank you very much. Also, Mankey and Nagel, a little disappointed in the abstention. But yeah, you guys had great points, and I think the fact that they didn't share the language or talking to you about it before they brought it forth was not a good thing. Quickly, I think we should have how to do it, a month where we recognize our armed forces and the veterans. We got a Pride Month. What we could do is maybe 1 week out of each month, fly the Marine flag, the Navy flag, the Air Force flag, and the Army flag. And then since we got an extra week on the Pride flag, maybe we put the US Coast Guard flag up after that. So now I'm talking to any parents or grandparents that are paying attention, because I still believe that that resolution was just a personal agenda and it was pushed on a false narrative. But what I do know also is a 46-year veteran of law enforcement is all the trends come from California and they come this way, whether it's drugs, skateboards, all the ideologies, they come this way. Crime, defund the police, everything. It starts west, comes east. One of my concerns is about the parades and stuff like that. If you look at LA, your gay pride parade recently, they literally had men fornicating in the street in front of small children. Okay, if you don't think all that stuff's going to move this way, I think you're wrong. So again, I'm going to just talk to the parents and grandparents that may or may not be listening. I truly think we're entering a time where parents who believe in values and principles are in enemy territory. And we have to fight for our children and grandchildren, because I agree with Kelly that those are marginalized. They can't talk for themselves, okay? We've got human and child trafficking right up on our Berlin Turnpike. Maybe we should have a commission about that instead of sexual preferences and things like that. But anyways, I just want to say that and the other thing is, we got the state constitution, we got the US Constitution, Bill of Rights, that all protects all of us. I swore 46 years ago to uphold and protect the people and our constitutions, and I've done that. And I would die for each one of you to protect your rights to say what you want now, to be what you want now, to do what you want now. So the protections are there. I don't suffer from white privilege, okay? I come from immigrants from Italy, both parents. There were eight of us children. We worked out. My father worked his ass off for all the years that they brought us up. My mother stayed home and raised us. We worked to go to college ourselves. I'm still paying for my daughter's education. But anyways, I'm going off track here. The bottom line is this: we need to protect the children. We need to protect our grandchildren. And I think what you were talking about, Councilman Page, about I'm trying to remember exactly how you put it. the southern states and all this stuff. Those things, in my opinion, have all happened because forced change was pushed on them by woke agendas that were trying to change their values and beliefs. And so they did act upon that. If you want to see a giant come alive, push values on people that are not theirs. And I believe that's what we're doing right now. And I disagree with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Distinguished members of the council, Mr. Mayor, Madam Acting Town Manager, Councilor Nagel, Councilor Budraco, Minority Leader Mankey, Majority Leader Page, Mr. Mayor Christian.
You state your name and address for the record one more time.
Mark Vance, 280 Williamstown Court, Newington. Deputy Mayor Rada, Councilor Lord, Councilor Gonzalez, Councilor Tiniakos, distinguished members of the council. Thank you for this opportunity, first and foremost. 47 years old, being a bicultural son of a Colombian mother, the stepson of a Colombian father. Mark Carl France is my name. I'm not trying to be narcissistic. I realize that I'm on a hot seat of sorts, and it's self-imposed. I studied for the Roman Catholic priesthood for the Archdiocese of Harvard for 2 years. And when I lived in Boston during the Cardinal Law's tenure, don't even get me started. The officer talked about her sleeping giants. I'm a little one. But I thank you very much. Io non sono italiano, io parlo colombiano, io ti rispetto. In other words, I don't speak Italian, I'm Colombian. But you know, I respect, self-respect. What does someone like me do moving forward with hopefully another 48 years of my life ahead of me? I think of Helen Nelson, Counselor Nelson. I used to pass by her house every day. So I wonder who lives in that house long as that. I'd like to live in that house. I never lived in that house, but I kind of dreamed of living in Miss Nelson's house, the farmhouse on the corner by the 7-Eleven, corner of Stoddard and Main Street. Where am I really going with that? I am in full support of, it's so darn, you politicize these things or not politicize. If taxpayers' dollars this and that and the other one, I'm a peacemaker. Believe me, I am a peacemaker. I pray to Almighty God every single day and night. Please, please, please let your justice reign in this town. Let your mercy reign in this. And even for non-believers, I mean, my friends are is all the colors of the rainbow going through a crystal. I'm just gonna go ahead and give a narrative for the next 1 minute. I've been drugged, roofied. I spent 34 days on top of Cedar Mountain being evaluated. And I integrated into the town of Newington as a responsible member of society. You better believe I'm a proud person. I'm a very proud man sitting in this seat. I'm grateful to Detective Jordan for arresting me in the year 2002 for coming out of a polo club in Hartford. Bullets out of my mind. Driving erratically. How dare? If I didn't know any better, I was shamed, humiliated, all this. But right now I'm an activist. I'm a peaceful activist. Never, ever, ever will you see me overtly. I'm a defender, if anything, but I don't know that. Grooming, interesting, but all these topics we'll discuss at the LGBTQIA committee. Well, I do agree with the council, inclusive. Okay, I do agree, but anyways, I'm not gonna. I voted for these folks anyways. I'm proud of them. Thank you so much. But let's keep the dialogue going, please. That's all. Please, the youth of Newington uses too. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have one over Zoom here. Miss Lyons, you are up.
Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. As much as I'm going to hate to do this, I'm going to have to come up to that town hall from the meetings from now on, because this is very frustrating. If I watch on NCTV, I'm a couple of minutes behind. If I listen, I don't hear because of Zoom going in and out. But that being said, I want to thank Town Manager Jamie for answering my question about who the staff person is on the pool committee. I would have asked her in an email had I thought of it earlier than tonight, just as I was writing notes about other questions I had about the committee. And I want to thank former Mayor Del Buono for bringing up the fact that Mr. DeMeo is probably the major stakeholder in this project. I have never seen anyone that was a major stakeholder in a project be the staff person. That being said, it is what it is. You've done what you've done, and I hope that people in town are paying attention to what's going on. It's very disturbing to me that it seems to be one direction and one direction only, and it's not very open or transparent, in my opinion. As I've said before, I want to see this go through, but I see it heading for disaster. In any case, I also was not able to listen to too much regarding the historic signage and things like that. I have been following it. Actually, I was one of the ones, along with Councilor Bedraco, who brought it up at a TPZ meeting when there was some plans or application in for Newington Junction about the historic value of that area. It's too bad. I believe that during your budget times that the historic homes budget and the beautification was cut. Maybe there should be a line item to do things for the historic homes that aren't part of the historical society or whatever, and maybe bring more of history back into this town. I know Dr. Collins has a big, long history of all the schools here in town. They shared with me, and I'm probably part of that history because I've been to almost every one of them, and now they're all different buildings for different uses. But that being said, I did notice on Facebook today that Dave Goodale mentioned that the Deming Young Farmhouse is being opened for tours on July 13th from 10 to 2. And there is an admission for adults of $3, but the money is going to be used, the proceeds are going to be used to restoration and preservation of the farmhouse itself. So maybe here's an opportunity for some people who haven't been in there, including myself, to take a tour and to help out the Deming Young Farmhouse in being preserved and restored for future generations. Thank you again, and good night.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room or over Zoom that'd like to participate in public participation? Seeing none, we move on to remarks by councilors. I'll actually jump in right away. I just want to address Mr. Donahue's question, concern about the vote being quieted. Just for that effort, I just want to add into the record, and hopefully everyone hears it. The vote for the LGBTQIA+ committee was 6 yes, 1 no, 2 abstentions. That's all I have on that in the record. Councilor Floyd.
Thank you, Mayor. There we go. Just a couple of things to Ms. Del Buono. You referenced the Alumni Road project. I don't know if you saw at, I think, our last meeting or the meeting before that, we did receive an update on that project. Happy to provide materials or work with you to review that. Just let us know if you have any questions. Other things with regards to the comments made by Ms. Kutsaya, I just want to thank you so much for saying what you did. And I want to thank everybody who comes out to these discussions because they're not always easy and we will disagree. I should bite my tongue, but I want to thank you for, I think, hitting the nail right on the head as to why this kind of action is important. So thank you for that. And I'm sure a lot of folks heard that online and really appreciated what you had to say. So thank you. And then as far as a couple more things, similar to Mr. Mealy's comments, we don't currently have the POW flag flying outside of our town hall. I've raised that. I hope we can fly that at some point. I'd certainly be in favor also of doing some observation of our armed forces throughout the months in which they should be recognized beyond just simply flying our flag or flying it at half staff when we're, being cognizant of an armed force member's death. So agree with that and happy to revisit that work. And then just to Ms. Lyons' point about Deming Farmhouse, I will be at that tour. I'm excited to be at that tour. If you haven't been in there, it is so cool. And they definitely need our support to support the renovation and rehabilitation of that farmhouse. So please get out there and support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other remarks by counselors? Items which we have none. I think there's anything up there. Very good. All right. Okay, we will move into agenda item 17, executive session. Councilor Gonzalez, would you mind reading the resolution? It's on the last page.
Resolved that the Newington Town Council PGS 1-200 6A hereby move to go into executive session.
So well.
All right, sorry, take two. Resolved that the Newington Town Council, in accordance with DGS Section 1-200 6A, hereby moves to go into executive session and invites the town council members and the mayor to discuss personnel for the executive town manager search.
Motion by Councilor Gonzalez.
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Rada. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We are into executive session. We are back from executive session. I would like to entertain a motion to